Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're having a wonderful night tonight. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have Richard, of course, and the one and only Otthias of C&Rsenal. After much delay, we have him on the show tonight. So
Yeah, I was
your
an early
evening
guest and I was run off. I was just like, no, we don't actually want you. We want these other guys.
That was bad. Yeah, that was probably my fault as well, because that was back, for people who've been watching the show for a while, when Gary was doing the production work and whatnot. And so that was months and months ago that we were supposed to have you on. But more stuff has transpired since then, so we can talk about it all now. So before we get going, how is your evening going?
Good. I've been running around like crazy today. I actually got back and showered and sat down to talk to you guys. So
oh, perfect timing. Richard, how is your evening going?
It's going great. Otthias, thanks for coming on. I know that we had some back and forth there for a little while. I appreciate you having patience with me getting you here.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, he was supposed to be the first guest on the new stream podcasts.
Oh,
and it got bumped, and then Gary left, and then I stepped in, and some other things happened. So I'm excited to have this discussion. And
the funny thing is about that is the episode I missed. You guys were gossiping about the STG 44 projects and like friends with people that were involved in that. I'm sitting there going,
yeah, like right up that alley.
I'm kind of glad I missed, because I'm like NDA. Like I'm just sitting there going, I can't gossip.
Yeah, no, that would have been a good one. I mean, we talked about earlier, but the SDI stuff and a few other topics, that would have been perfect for you. But
well, I can't talk about that one ever. But
yeah,
that was your crusade when I first. That's the only reason I saw your channel, was your SDI crusade.
Yeah. That was a good time. Well, if you guys are not familiar, let me pull this up real fast with C&Rsenal. Oh, shoot, what happened?
If you're not familiar, you are
there
wrong.
We go. Just today, I finished out the quick biography of John Moses Browning, part 1 and 2. Absolutely fantastic videos, and I learned a lot about that I didn't know, because usually you just hear the highlights about people, but to actually get into the nitty-gritty of a lot of the stuff, even though absolutely insane history of the gentleman, but absolutely fantastic video series that you just put out on the channel, sir. So I appreciate those.
Those are our easy videos. I just compiled a bunch of data and dumped it without having to do all our animation and everything. So I'm glad people are liking them, because that was basically me trying to make time to do other work.
Right. Well, I love that sort of stuff, because that's the type of thing that you can go on drives with, listen to, and it's just really good information, and the presentation's great as well. But I do want to also say the graphics. Do you do all of those yourself?
Yeah, so we're almost entirely in-house. The one thing that we do is there's a couple of auction houses and private sellers like College Hill Arsenal, Rock Island. We've negotiated with them to have access to their image library with proper attribution. So occasionally I don't have a photo of something, but we do have something like 500 odd antique and curio firearms photographed already in our in-house. So, but I haven't photographed everything. So when possible, I'll borrow from them, and then if I have to, we'll actually do illustrations ourselves. And so, yeah, we're all in-house on all of our illustrations and editing and everything like that. We're like a one-stop shop. We actually employ our own animator. So all the 3D animations and stuff are also done by us.
Yeah, because that's the stuff that's like really hard to do. Actually, takes talent to show how things work, right?
I don't want to talk any smack too hard, but a lot of people are familiar with what is that Russian-made video game that's not a video game?
Tarkov?
No, World of Guns or whatever. Is that what I'm thinking of?
Oh, okay, yeah.
The gun animation video game thing. It's not really a video game. It's just a thing on Steam that shows you how guns work. Right. And I've noticed that in many ways we tend to improve on that, because every once in a while you get a hold of a gun and you're like, somebody was working from like schematics and drawings and they couldn't actually see how it works. So like the 1887 shotgun we just did, it's amazing how the mainspring actually back indexes things and does other stuff you don't think about because it's moving both on the linear axis and the rotational axis. And so having our own animator lets us sit there and go, hold on. There's some nuance here that no one else has captured, and we can show it. And I think some of that nuance is the brilliance of how things work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's where you need somebody who's like a historian who has like this autistic level of detail to actually understand how things work, right? To actually put that on screen to people.
I'm lucky I have our animator Bruno now, though, because I used to have to do. We did 2D animations; those were mine as well. That was starting the show was a nightmare. But now that we have our own animator, I can at least hand things to him and be like, "You sort." Right. And sometimes he'll come back and be like, "Hold on, what do you think is going on here?" And we all have to look at it together. But generally, Bruno's got it all down now, better than I do. So it's nice to be able to be like, "Okay, one part of this thinking goes in your brain, not mine. I'm going to go read."
Right, you can actually do something useful with your time rather than stare at a computer screen for 20 hours trying.
I get stuck with I get stuck with the computer screen. That's what I get stuck with. So in the books, so he gets to sit there and pull the guns apart now. Which actually, now that I think about it, I probably got screwed on that deal. But
yeah, you got the bad one.
Yeah, I paid him to take the fun part.
So a quick question for you, just as a foundation. So what originally got you into the history side of things with firearms?
I was deeply unsatisfied with what was available. It might not have happened if I had got a hold of a different gun as my first firearm, but I came to firearms ownership later, post college actually, and through an incident with some friends, I ended up with his Mosin Nagant rifle, which is a starter for many people of my generation. It was covered in markings. It had, as someone that was more mechanically inclined, it had an operation that made no sense to me. And the more, I started buying military surplus firearms. And when I did, I kept looking back at the Mosin and going, I don't understand why they made it this way. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Like I couldn't come up with a logical reason for why the Mosin was the way it was. And I would read books. I bought every book that you could get on it at the time. And none of them explained it. Even like the I can't remember the name of the author. There's a German book that was available that was much more detailed, but it still doesn't explain why. Like, it drove me nuts. Now, today, thankfully, there's an author out of Russia, Chumak, who did a wonderful Mosin book, but it's only in Russian, so it's a Cyrillic translation. But fiddling my way through that, I finally got the story that was the correct story, and that's the one that's available in our Mosin Nagant episode, which explains how they did it, which is that they would pick one feature and they would pick, okay, what kind of barrel do we want? A, B, or C? A. Okay, good. Lock it in. We're never changing it, no matter what problems we run into. And so when you do it that way, where it's like you're building this mousetrap contraption by going lock, okay, lock. At no point when you get to the fourth lock can you go back and change the first two, which is what a normal, it's the antithesis of John Moses Browning, right? John Moses Browning comes up with a holistic system that solves multiple problems in one go. The Mosin Nagant is a very linear operation in which every one thing is built on top of the other until you get to the end, and it's just like, hey, how do we keep it from rotating out of battery? Okay, I guess we're going to put this stupid collar on it that goes all the way down the length of the bolt and messes everything up. Okay, fine. Because that's where we're at, because we're not changing anything that we did before.
Right, because you can't do anything else. And now you have to fix it at the last step of production versus actually making something that works from the beginning.
It also I was going insane because people are like, yeah, they're so simple. They're so Soviet. I'm like, these are from Tsarist Russia, and they're one of the most complicated bolt action rifles you can find in the worst way. Like, they're extremely complicated and unnecessary.
Well, mostly in the bolt. Because I've not owned, but I've had a couple of Mosins to play around with. But yeah, the bolt compared to like a normal bolt action rifle is quite a bit more complex.
Yeah, I'm convinced that they just borrowed from the Winchester Hotchkiss and added some crap, and it was they added tape from the start. Like, no, we put a detachable bolt head on it. That's fine. You're like, yeah, okay.
That's like, why'd you do that? I don't know.
I mean, Chumac's very honest about his approach to it, where he's just like, yeah, they were doing it this way. And now he's not insulting about it, but he does lay it out. So if you have any context from other developments, you can sit there and go, huh. So anytime he writes anything, I get a hold of the books, to be honest with you. They're great.
Do you find that's the best way to find like actual like detailed information on a lot of these older firearms?
Really, whoever's willing to go through the primary source data is going to have the best data. Unfortunately, though, primary source data means it has to be explicit to what you're talking about, and this is what confuses people all the time. I'll have someone say, oh, we have a letter from Samuel Colt, and it says this, so we know this. And I go, that man was a liar. We know he was a liar. He was caught lying all the time. Sam Colt is not a reference source for Sam Colt.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so you have to be like, Sam Colt is the ultimate, like, what is it? I can't remember.
Unreliable narrator.
Yes, thank you, unreliable narrator. It's amazing, and people are writing whole books about him off of his letters, and I'm just going, oh god, this is the
you can't
worst way
actually
to
believe
understand.
that.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, because I would have never thought, because I would have read that and been like, oh, that's perfect. That must have been exactly what happens. But it's like, yeah, of course the guy's not being honest about himself, right?
If you ever watch our Sam Colt episodes, I have to be you see me say this may be apocryphal, or I say Sam Colt tells us. Like, I'm very careful to never say it's a fact. I have to be like, well, this is what we are told, because it's the only thing that's written down, and it's probably some sort of lie.
What do you think about modern cult versus old cult? Well, I don't know if you.
It's not the same thing.
Stuff. Yeah.
The break on is there, I can't think if there isn't a modern American firearms manufacturer that has continuity with its original self. I can't. I mean, Keltec, but it's not that old.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Kellgren
is nothing could be that old.
Like, Keltec's still Kellgren, but then Colt's not. It's been bought and sold. Remington's been bought and sold. Remington was bought and sold in its historical period. It was owned by Winchester for a while. That was funny. Winchester's bought and sold. I don't know. I'm trying to think about FN. I can't remember if FN had a major buyout. I can't recall now.
GB has a good point. He says, can you imagine an American gun history according to SHOT Show releases and announcements?
That's exactly it, though. That is really
actually, that is a good point. Yeah, because it's like, can you take those things? No, that's absolute nonsense. We would read that today and be like, that's a joke.
Oh, it's all hype. The other thing is like, oh, the first gun to do this or the best gun to do that. And you're like, no, it's not the first. It's just the first to pay for the advertising. Like,
well, so because the historical firearms are not my forte at all. It's like the exact opposite of anything that I pay attention to. So do you ever find yourself seeing some new quote unquote hype train product and being like, hey, that's actually just a refrain of this design back here?
They're all recycled. Yeah. I mean, luckily, I'm kind of a little proud because, putting that Steyr-Hahn episode out there and people really becoming familiar with it from video games, everybody immediately lit on the new Keltec pistol as like the new Steyr-Hahn. I was just like, oh, you guys noticed this one. But there's so many others like, hey, we're doing this innovative thing. I'm like, I saw that 120 years ago. But,
yeah. Okay, so here's maybe another question for you off of that. What do you think is the most innovative modern firearm?
I might be the wrong person to ask, I'm trying to think.
I mean, it's spur of the moment question, so.
The problem is we really haven't seen. I don't think we've seen that much advancement since the introduction of polymers, like reliable polymers. Now the accessories market.
So you're saying the Glock? Glock is the most innovative modern firearm.
What are we counting as modern?
Well, modern.
Yeah, because that Glock was like 84 or something like that. I can't remember now. But I mean, you have the polymer revolution, which was big, and then you have this accessories market that's actually expanded faster than anything else. So your base firearm really hasn't changed as much as we like to think it has. We play this game of sort of like changing calibers all the time, but I'm going to be honest with you, all the caliber changeovers, you can find Winchester or Remington equivalents from the turn of the century, like every time. There's only so many combinations of mass and velocity. What you're really seeing, though, is accessories market, though. You look at optics, you look at various forms of night vision, you look at I mean, good Lord, we're moving beyond that in accessories too. And I don't know that much about modern accessories anyway, but that seems to be where all, it's like we've got the ballistics figured out. We've got the reliability fairly figured out and how to have an auto loading rifle of some sort. And then it's all just this game of like min-maxing the various statistics with the features that we have available. Cause has anybody come up with a new locking system? Has anybody come up with a new, like,
radial delay?
No, radial delay's been around. They arguably called it that. They tried to say that there was a delay in the Savage 1907's pistols, but that's arguable. But there were other attempts at radial delay actually in the early automatic rifle periods, but they found them to be unreliable because they were still doing metallurgical problems, to be honest with you. A lot of people forget that metallurgy plays a huge part in it. There's a lot of things that we understood how to do, but we couldn't get the metal to do it reliably until we pushed. So like an example of that, SKS, we just did an SKS video, and the SKS was designed before the war for a full-powered rifle cartridge, and it kept failing out because they couldn't make it out of the gun steel that was available at the time. They kept using this special expensive steel, and then their prototypes would work great. And they're like, we're not making, we're the Soviet Army. We're not making that many guns out of this high-quality steel. We need to make it out of this other steel. And essentially they're going, yeah, but you can't make good automatics out of that steel, especially not the way we're doing it, rear locking and all this other stuff. Now, if they thought to do barrel lockup or something, maybe they could have pulled it off. But then the barrel steel still has to be the special steel, So, right. So the SKS is basically, it exists because the guy who invented it was just like, I'm going to keep making it out of special steel. And they're like, you're not getting anywhere. And then after the war, like, okay, I guess we're going to make it out of special steel. Like, he just finally won, So
right, it can't be done otherwise.
They reduced the power of the cartridge, so that helped him out a lot too. I'm sure he was able to cut back on the quality a little bit there too. But
yeah, so I guess the most modern advancements are more like modularity and materials, right?
Yeah, modularity is a huge one, but that comes about at the same time almost. I mean, you see it sort of appended to the AR, and that's what we're all familiar with in our market now. But then you see more and more firearms coming out that have modularity in mind right from the start.
Yeah, well, they have to compete now, right?
Yeah, well, everybody wants multi-role. It also, it's not just to compete, it allows you to have one base product that you can push in all directions. And, setting up tooling for multiple products is a little insane. The other thing is I know a number of engineers, and one of the things that's very common now is that we don't do specific parts for firearms anymore. Talking to engineers, I'll sit there and go, why are there like 7 screws in this gun? And all these little like plunger springs, if you just made a shape kind of like this, I'm thinking like John Browning, where I'm just like, just make a shape like this with like 2 things off of it. He's like, you don't understand. It's going to cost us $5 a pop to have that shape printed out by the time we make 10,000 guns. But I can buy these springs and plungers for like a half of a cent each because they all just come out of China or wherever else. And then if the project doesn't sell 10,000 units, we're not in the hole. But if we tool up to make this part, then the project's got to clear however many before we even recoup the funds. So they get trapped in this well of like, we have to use prefabricated subcomponents. And
right, stuff that already exists on the market that you can just take and then fit into your thing. Like that's why, like the old ACR receivers are like steel rails on the inside with like 12 bolts running along the outside of the receiver to hold everything together.
Yeah, it's what you can afford to put together because we just don't have anybody that can make that shape for you just running it from the machine. That's a huge investment nowadays. I mean, it used to be New England was full of guys like that, but now you can't find them in most of America. So
yep. All right, well, let's switch gears a little bit here. Let's pull up to you. For people who don't know, congratulations on your win. But you got the best gun reviewer of 2024 at the 2025 Gundies. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
I have no idea how. I don't. This is what caught me off guard because we didn't put out their call out. Like I just.
So you never made a mention of it? Your
did.
Audience was like, "We're voting for you."
I have not really promoted Gundies other than one time, which was do you know British Muzzleloaders? Have you seen that channel?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, Rob with the big mustache. He
Rob's great.
Yeah, he's a doll. So years back, we went to one Gundies and it was kind of a shit show. And the next year, I was like, they had the most dapper category, and I went, oh, these guys, no one has it on Rob with that big mustache and all that Victorian gear. That's a dapper, like the definition. So we made a whole promo video for you should vote for Rob for the Gundies. I don't know. You guys can find it. You probably look at like
one and only time that I ever voted was when you made that, and I was like, he absolutely deserves it.
So we actually have the record because we're the only ones to actually break their website. So we put out that video and it down their website. He won by like some insane margin because we made our little humorous video targeting Rob. And then the poor man's from Western Canada, so he had to like go down to Texas and survive the heat. And then he gets I love this story because he told me, because I was like, tell me all about it, because all we saw was him walk up to get the award, and then like their stream broke like it always does. Well, not now because they pre-record, but they used to try to stream it, but there's no reception out there. So Rob says he goes in his like Highland kilt outfit, and they say Rob from British Muzzleloaders, and he said his moment of pride was he's walking towards the stage and he walks by some guy that goes, "Who the is this guy?" Like,
Oh, that's amazing.
So
So-
I've seen that category was actually sponsored by AvantLink.
right? Is
Uh,
that? I mean, that's how everybody's making their money now. Isn't that what PSA and everybody else uses?
Yeah.
Most people, use
We-
AvantLink for everything.
We're not even signed up. Like, I can't do the double deep. I don't know. What is it now? You have to have a landing page to a landing page or something because YouTube's scraping the landing pages.
Right. So you have to, like how I do it, because I have a campsite, right? Or
Right.
whatever it's called, right? So you click on that to click on the other links or whatever it happens to be.
That's
So
something-
everything's double walled.
I used to do like web dev stuff when I was in the technology field. And do you know how much attrition you have trying to go from one link to another, let alone double deep like that? It's utter insanity.
Oh, yeah.
To be honest with you
I
guys-
can see my click-through rate, and it's ridiculous.
I'm personally insulted by the way the market has gone. I've talked to guys that were with various advertisers, and a lot of them have left their positions because of frustrations like this. But you have this old guard, and it kind of feeds into why there's so many gun bunnies. But a channel like ours that's putting out an hour plus documentary every other week, we have extremely high goodwill with our audience. We've never misled them on something to interact with or buy with. We get the scantest, terrible offers and these outrageous, like, prideful demands. And I'm sitting there going, my guy, nobody knows who you are. Like, they know your company exists and you have these base level of sales, but you're looking for a kind of communication. You're looking to establish yourself as being connected to your ground audience. And to do that, you're going to have to buy off of me something called Goodwill. Now, some guys will sell their goodwill and their reputation for next to nothing, or they'll sell it for lots. And either way, they're happy to lie through their teeth. But we won't do either. Like, you need to give me at least enough money to make sense for me to interrupt my audience's attention span, because I'm not going to insult it. I have to think about it. I'm like, you want me to interrupt 40,000 people for 30 seconds? How many hours is that you've just wasted of human existence if you don't have something to actually say?
Sure.
And you aren't actually what I mean to say. So, I need it to be something that covers that time for me to produce it into the show, because it's going to annoy my audience. No matter what I do, an ad will annoy my audience. So there's a base cost of that. Sorry, guys.
100%.
B, it needs to be something that I would tell my own family member to buy and not feel like they've wasted their money. Excuse me. So even if it's like a not bad product, but if it's overpriced, I'm going to sit there and go, I'm kind of doing that right now. There's actually one other person that's approached us. I'm sitting there going, I don't know. So I'm trying to make up my mind, and who knows, they'll probably wander off on me because I'll take too long. But
Right.
That's left us was basically Ballistol, because Ballistol's like, just tell people we exist. How your audience, just tell them we exist. And thankfully, I've heard that we've had extremely good feedback, because I basically just pitch it for 20 seconds or less. And I just go, if you buy something, tell them we sent you. That's all. There's no. Now, they could have on me. They're a product that technically doesn't break YouTube's rules. We could be doing this whole kickback system where it's all tracked and everything else. They're like, it's not really how we work. Just here's the money that we agreed to, and you send people our way. And I was already using the product exclusively. I mean, I don't use it as a replacement for grease, but that's not what they're asking me to talk about. I just use it as a CLP, and generally for a rust inhibitor. And that's what I tell people to do with it. And it's really good for black powder salts and stuff like that too. So
that's a really good ad integration for a channel where it directly is a product that you already use. Works for your application, right? You're not trying to sell, like, I don't know, like bed sheets or whatever it happens to be that some other person might be peddling online.
To be fair, I would if they were good bed sheets. I don't need it to be integrated, but it was beautiful. To be fair, I kind of approached them. But I will say, what keeps happening, and this really annoys me about the way things have gone online for gun tubers, right? You've experienced this too. They tell the gun tuber, we want this integration. We want to be able to track all these click-throughs and everything else. They don't do it to the advertisers at the magazine industry. And they'll drop thousands of dollars on these full-page ads in these magazines. And they have no proof of circulation, no proof at all. They have no proof of how many people read the ad. They have no, by the way, if everyone reads the ad, No, a statistically insignificant number of people who see a full page ad in a magazine somehow translate that into a click or a dollar on your website. It is so diluted. And yet they keep doing it. And they do it because they recognize that there's something about having this market recognition and not being forgotten about. You don't want people to forget you're there for even a moment, right? So they're spending tens of thousands of dollars on these print ads, and they won't flex a K on some gun tuber unless we can get absolute tracking of every cent, and we'll only give you what you actually make. And I'm just going, the hell are you talking about? And the same thing is like Outdoor Channel. It's on cable. It's on cable. We better give them all this money. And I'm like, I have more viewers than that channel does, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah. If you actually look at ratings for some of these
And
things, it's quite funny that
But that-
YouTubers get more views than a lot of these, big, where these companies are shelling out millions of dollars for advertising.
Right. But it's all built around a system that they understand from when they were younger. And whoever has the purse strings now is generally the oldest generation who's still in the game and not getting out of the way. And they don't understand the market. So what do? When they want to do new market stuff, they play with hot girls that show up and pay them attention. So you have these girls that show up with 1,000 followers, and they cut them checks that would fund my show for a year. And they won't look twice at me because, again, they're not measuring the output. They're just happy to be entertained themselves. You know what I mean? They're like, well, I want to spend time with the hot girl in the office. Like other people like hot girls. Right, yeah, not only that, but they're also, and I'm not saying they're sleazy necessarily. I am saying like to some level they're going, well, she's pretty hot, so a lot of other guys are watching too because everybody likes hot girls. And meanwhile, everyone under the age of 40 is just like, not another one of these. You know what I mean? It just
right. Yeah, it's a different generation.
And by the way, I'm not saying that all the girls that are involved in this are useless because I know some that are friends of mine, but they're the ones that give a damn about what they're covering. They're putting in some effort. They're not hinging their whole personality around just like, tee-hee, what's this,
Right.
I mean, we have May on our show, but May works hard. She doesn't just sit there and try to look good. That's just such a weird, I mean, it helps, don't get me wrong, but
May's awesome.
It does feel disingenuous. And so I'm sure it works for many people, but it's not the route we've chosen to. And I understand you guys are probably frustrated by the same things where you're just like, yeah, no matter what my real effect is, like, when C&Rsenal spends Goodwill, people move because they know we're so stingy about spending it. But then no one puts any value on that when we offer it to them,
Well, and that's the thing with Avant Link. Like I recently, last 6 months or so, I canceled like 62 of the little sponsor things that you have on there or whatnot. So I only have like 2 or 3 left, and I don't do anything with them. So I probably should just fully cancel all that stuff. But there's always somebody who asks like, oh, do you have Avant Link? Do you have this? And they will never talk to you unless you do have Avant Link, right?
Oh yeah,
because they want that. And the funny, you talk about print ads, they only get the numbers on the back end like from the company. And so the companies could straight up say like, hey, we sold 10,000 magazines to some grocery store.
They don't even do that though.
Actually,
their circulation is a lie. They always have to buy them back. When they don't sell them, those companies buy that. Anyway,
they've done it in the comic industry and lots of things. They'll say like, hey, we sold 80,000 copies, right? But they're all sitting on store shelves and nobody has read them, right?
Yeah,
but that's what's in circulation, right?
They're probably not even saying sold. They say distribution or something.
Yeah. Whatever nonsense they can legally get away with, that's what they'll do.
Oh, so, it's sitting in the storage unit.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely frustrating. Like the people that really move the market are the ones that almost never get the credit. I mean, there are some examples of gun tubers that are pulling good money from ad and for display of product, and I know people get irritated by that. But at the same time, if you're a manufacturer, it's actually very valuable. Like it's very valuable to sell your product, and we can also see it if it's sold in the right way too. It can be very dangerous to have your product sold incorrectly. I think there's some speculation with the Hudson back in the day that hearing that a lightweight version was coming out soon caused everybody to stall on the initial purchases, and then all of a sudden they went cash poor. And so it's just like, ooh, maybe that fact shouldn't have been revealed until you were stable on the first product. Like getting too far ahead of yourself is not a good thing. So, having some sort of like market, like control of market perception is very important. The best way to do that is to do a good job. And if you have
that's the part that everybody skips. They skip
right.
doing, making a good product that actually works, that's at a good price. They go to the like, how do I market this to people, right?
Right.
How do I just make the money? Let's forget about the product. Let's make the money.
The secret that's immoral to keep is this product actually sucks, right? The secret that's not immoral to keep is Gen 2's coming out in like 7 months, but we'll go bankrupt if people stop buying Gen 1 right now. Like that's a manufacturer's prerogative to keep that a secret, right? That's not an immoral secret because they can't make Gen 2 unless they keep selling Gen 1.
I mean, I could make an argument either way on that if they knew that Gen 1, like let's say SIG releases a product that they know has faults with it, but they know that they also have to sell X amount before they can, run with the MCX Gen 6 or whatever they're on right now.
I'm talking about improvements and features. I'm not talking about what should be a recall. What should be a recall is different, a different issue entirely. Yeah. But it's so odd, but you have to keep certain secrets for people just because of courtesy and other things like that. But then there's also things that are just fundamentally wrong in the way the industry's stacked, and so you have to kind of look people in the eye and be like, don't tell me this because I don't want to hear anything unethical right now,
Right. Well, it is surprising how many people will just talk to you about what they're doing.
Oh my God.
With a straight face. And they'll be like, hey, so we had to do this and this, and then this guy happened. And it was like, wow, that's crazy, isn't it? And you're like, why are you telling me this? How do you think I'm going to deal with this information? You see
the Project Veritas catfishing people on dates, and I'm like, or you could just be a fat bearded guy and they'll just say things at you.
They do the exact. It's like, yeah, we are the honeypot for the industry people. It's like, hey, you have an audience. I'll tell you like lots of random things because you're interested in money only. It's like, you must have mistaken me for one of the other 42 guys.
I think May is in your chat now, by the way, just to warn you.
Which one is May? May Winchester?
May.
Yeah.
May Winchester says one room over editing Shani Ep while listening. Time delay. Shanshi.
Yeah, we're covering a Chinese
while listening. I see. The time delay is like.
Oh, my animator is in there too. Apparently. Good Lord, I'm sorry.
Is that BAM animations? Yeah, they're all hanging out.
Bruno is nursing a migraine from dealing with the last shotgun episode.
Oh, I'm very sorry. Yeah. SIG doesn't change. We will fix it next generation.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
contracts have always been like that to a certain degree, though. Like you'd be amazed at how often you see the U.S. government doing things they really shouldn't do with firearms.
Well, that's actually funny because you talk about SIG and U.S. contracts, at the P320 and all this stuff going on there. Yes, the government is slightly immoral.
It goes back to Colt. It goes back to be fair, a lot of people do not want to admit how much the 1911 is a ripoff of its nearest competitor. Like that is a sore spot for a lot of people. I'm like, yeah. So Browning designed this gun, and it was kind of cool in this one way, and it worked really well. Ergonomically, it was hot garbage, and the Luger was better ultimately, like just better. And so they kicked the can around long enough, and then found ways to creatively copy the Luger without violating any of the patents. And then they just made a Browning Luger, and everybody loved it, and they called it the 1911. And it makes everyone see that I'm just like, oh, that's weird. It has an aggressive rake and a thumb release for the magazine, and it has all the features where you can reach it with just one hand. That's weird. How come none of this was true of his previous design? And then all of a sudden it was that way after the Luger was beating their ass left and right. Like, it's Colt's spending so much money chasing the Luger around. They're finally like, just make like a Browning Luger. Although don't call it that.
Just make it our version of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's actually funny because you see, different designs come out in different places, right? And then it's like there's a German gun, and then like we're going to copy that, and then they're going to sue us for that, and then we're going to make a change, to make it slightly 10% different so that we don't get, sued out of existence for having this product or whatnot.
Hey, it worked out for us because like the Luger had the ergonomics right, but it did it in this claptrap insane way. And then Browning's slide was brilliant. And once he decided to redesign the Luger essentially to be more efficient, then you end up with like, hey, what if you have like a Luger, but instead of stupid toggle lock, it has a slide that works? And then we'll un-F the trigger system because the Luger trigger is a nightmare. And we'll get all these other features in with a lower parts count, and it'll just work. Also, it's like one of the few guns that can handle 45. And everybody's like, oh, wow, we really won with that one. And you're like, yeah, it's because Luger gave you something to chase after, and then you made, a less
Well, the Luger from the outside just looks wacky, right? With the exposed moving parts, and like you said, the trigger system's crazy on it. But you look at, like, at least from a modern perspective, when I look at a Browning high power or a 1911, it just looks like a normal handgun, right?
Yeah.
You look at a Luger and you're like, this is nuts. Like, what is going on here?
Well, to be fair, the Luger looks a lot like all the other handguns of its era, which is that you have this core concept and you keep building outside of it to get it to work right. Like it's the mousetrap thing we're talking about. It's like, okay, hold on, we got to add this. Well, once we add it, we got to cover it up somehow or squeeze it in there. And so it's not a holistic design. It's not a design that goes back to its roots and rewinds everything to work as efficiently as possible, which was what Browning was known for. And a lot of people tried to get there, but even today, you don't see a lot of that design coming through, because you do have to design around the available components. So you don't get to make custom pieces anymore. But really, the real reason all modern handguns look like the 1911 to some degree is because it defined the mold. Like, it sort of set the pattern. It's like, ooh, this is hard to beat. And so,
well, I think it's also, like you said, like there's a economy of scale behind it, right? So like if you wanted to bring a new handgun to market, you could go to X number of machine shops that are already making a generic slide style design, right? That you could then mix and match a little bit to be like, 10% different, right? Like you see with all the different Glock manufacturers, like Glock clones or whatnot. So
it's also a tooling thing. Like, you're familiar with how to make these cuts now, so you just keep making those cuts. Like, when you're working from a certain alphabet, you only get so many combinations of characters.
Yeah. All right. So talking about SHOT for just a minute, a couple weeks ago, was there anything there specifically on reproductions that was exciting to you?
I did not go.
Okay.
But I never do. I actually get this every year. It's like, why are you at SHOT? I'm like, because I cover old guns and these are new. Like, it's so expensive to get out there, and then I'm not going to have any content when I get back. It's not a role. But
it's not worth it from that perspective unless you're getting paid to go, which fortunately I get paid to go, so it's works.
No, there's not. We don't really do that kind of content anyway, so it just, I would be taking all the people that pay me every month and saying like, hey, instead of doing the thing you're paying me to do, I'm gonna go play around and catch a cold.
I'm gonna go hang out and have fun.
Yeah. So but the guys go. I don't know, have you seen Floodbusters coverage of this yet? Because they found the one thing that I was truly interested in, and all the footage.
Let me pull it up real fast. Which one was it specifically?
Floodbusters they should have one of the more recent videos as a SHOT Show release. I think it's like early on in there. He found, do you know what a miserable loader is? The Stevens visible loader?
It doesn't sound familiar.
Okay, so there was this pump gun from the turn of the century that was a 22 pump, and it's a hammer fired gun in which the entire breech block comes out of the back of the gun, and when it does, the cartridge feeds from a magazine tube underneath, and it pops up into the breech face. The whole cartridge is visible, and then when you pump forward, it just takes it right into the breech, almost like loading like a quick fire artillery gun or like a tank loader or something. And it's this little tiny 22 that's almost like a breech loading artillery piece. And it has a little tiny short stroke. It has no disconnector, so a lot of people don't realize you can slam fire it. So you can just hold the trigger down. Just bip, 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 bip.
Right.
They're super cute and super fun. However, they were called the miserable loader because if the springs get out of tension, they just throw cartridges everywhere. I used to have one. I wish I'd kept it now. But the point being is, Matt over at Floodbusters wanders into Tippmann's booth, and he spots this thing in the back that no one has picked up all day, and it's like they kept calling it the pirate pistol, and it's a pistol version of the miserable loader in 380. So it's this pump action pistol, and it's just the wackiest claptrap thing you'll ever see. And I guess only idiots like us that know what a miserable loader is love it. But he played with it enough to tell that it had no disconnector. So in theory, you could just like pump as many 380s as you get.
Yeah.
And your magazine capacity is as long as your barrel, because it's whatever you put the mag tube under.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I guess one of the guys at Tippmann made it years ago, and then for some reason they felt like bringing it to SHOT Show this time. And Matt's like, "Why aren't you making like they're trying to sell whatever their modern thing is?" And he's just like, "Make these, make tens of thousands of these. This is the funniest thing I've seen." So, did you find?
Yeah, if they can actually sell them. I pulled up Tippmann real fast. I didn't see it. It was on.
No, they're not advertising it. It's like something that he found. I don't think. It's one of those things. I don't think they want to make it. I think they just happen to have it out, and some idiot found it.
Somebody said, "Well, actually, here, let me see."
I think
it might be on his. It might be on his FUD Blasters page. Somebody said.
Oh, is that it? It's on his Blasters.
Let me see. I wonder what he would have called it.
SHOT Show.
Actually, you know what? I think I found it. I found it.
You got it?
Hold on.
Oh yeah, yeah. That thing.
Yeah. Okay.
That's like my favorite thing I saw. Like, they switched it over to like a side gate though. They did make one improvement, and that it's a gate loader now. But
that is so funny.
This is a prototype. Not quite sure if we're gonna stick with this caliber. Might switch it over to 9.
I mean, I think 9mm does make more.
Oh
sense.
yeah, oh yeah.
That
the
is
fact that it's in 380 tells you how long it's been sitting around.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's not like something like that's going to have much recoil to it. Probably weighs like 4 pounds.
I don't know. They need to make a rifle version too, because I would go nuts to have a 9mm pump action miserable loader. That'd be.
You know, what's funny is people would actually like that because, you know, if you're in a band state or whatnot, people love lever actions, right? So give them a pump action 9mm.
It's also if you have no disc, if it's a slam, everybody loves slam fire, and for liability purposes, we've moved away from it, and they probably would have to put in some disconnector that we can remove. But
right.
I will say, if you haven't shot a miserable loader slam fire, the stroke is as short as a 22 long rifle, so it's a tiny little pump action stroke. So you can just furiously.
Oh yeah.
There's a picture of the miserable loader. You can just furiously send rounds downrange, which is really funny. Like just so funny to do. I'm sure this would be the nightmare of like every RSO. Like this is every RSO's worst nightmare is this gun.
Oh my gosh.
Do you know how many carrier strikes they're going to be at every like indoor range because of this gun? It's going to be the worst. They're never going to make it. But
well, okay, this or like Glock switches, right? Which one's the worst fear at a public range?
I know it's the worst fear at a public range is slugs and a shockwave. Like the number, those of you guys that work at indoor ranges, tell me how many of your carriers have been wiped out by some dude with a shockwave. But
that is amazing.
Yeah. They always think they're capable of hip firing, and they just put it right in the ceiling.
Yeah, that's what everybody thinks. It right up until they try it, you know, and then they're like, "Oh, this is not as easy as it looked in whatever they were watching as a kid."
I'm convinced that hip fire is actually fairly effective, but it's almost impossible to train on without causing severe damage to the environment or people.
Right.
So you can't indoor train on hip fire, and when you outdoor train on hip fire, you need a long range,
or just a really big backstop, basically.
Oh yeah, you need a mountain backstop.
Hillside.
That's true too. Yeah.
Well, when I used to live in Washington, they had these huge gravel pits with like 50-foot tall walls, right?
Which there you go.
Out here in South Dakota, everything is flat, so
see,
little different.
I've had a couple encounters with hip fire. Rob came to do some testing that was from the British Doctrine with revolvers, and so because he left the equipment around, we played with it. And I can hip fire a pistol just fine. Apparently, I didn't know this was a talent. And then I got bored one day with a friend, and I had like a motorcycle that I used to get around the property, and so we're just like, yeah, we'll just drive by the steel targets, and we'll just like
do a drive by.
Like with a 1911 that I had, I was just like, yeah, let's try it. And I was just
the boomer drive by.
Yeah, I'm doing like 7 for 7 at like 40 feet on the IPSC steel while driving the motorcycle. And I went, I'm not aiming. I'm just vaguely pointing the 1911 over there, and I'm scoring. I was really surprised.
You just have that natural point of aim or whatever, Travis.
No, I'm not even thinking that I'm that talented. I just think we've all been driven out of it, that we don't know that there is an inherent ergonomics to it that you can point shoot. It's just that you really shouldn't, because to find out that you can do it requires a lot of room. You know
what's funny is I think Jerry Mitchell actually has a video on point shooting.
Does he? Yeah, it was a very valid strategy for training, especially, we think about a lot of times, everybody talks about militarization of the police, but I think we've forgotten how much we police the military. We demand very narrow engagements nowadays. And in times of all-out war, where you're just up against waves of men, the idea of just sort of like pumping rounds out doesn't bother them, Like it's like, yeah, you're moving from one trench to the other. Whoever shoots first is probably going to do better, especially when there's all of you shooting first. It's not just you shooting first. So there is something to like we're not counting what's behind the target, because what's behind the target is the other country. Just keep pumping lead,
Right, volume of fire approach versus accurate fire. Yeah, whereas in a police circumstance, it's absolutely the opposite.
Right.
Every time there's a bad shoot, it is like the most publicized thing. Some bystander gets hit, but
body cams have been real fun for that.
Oh, dude, yeah, body cams are the greatest source of entertainment in the 21st century.
I will say, I mean, thank crap for them on the SIG thing, though. Could you imagine the SIG situation without body cams? The
right, where
blame
they
would be
couldn't
on
prove it.
the whole the blame would be on the guy every time, like the officer every time.
Well, and that's the thing people have brought up is like, of course the officer's going to blame the gun. Nobody wants to be the guy that shot himself, right? But now if you have video proof and then of course a volume of evidence that hey, these things occasionally have a tendency to go off on their own.
Let's go look at the camera.
Yeah.
We've had like
check
3
the
or
tapes
4
on them.
instances, or I think it was about 4 instances just within the past 3 months of SIGs being responsible for school shootings because a resource officer had one holstered.
Yeah, but we'll still put that on the metric.
Yep, it still goes. It still goes towards the final numbers.
Well, it's like if you ever break down like mass shootings, it'll be like 3 people were injured. It's all gang drive-bys, and it's like 3 people were minorly injured. Mass shooting. It's like there's one every day in America. It's like, well, there's actually 3 every weekend. Exactly. There's 3 every weekend in Chicago. Yes.
Right.
But yeah, that's not exactly, that doesn't say what you think it's saying. Now, talking about our favorite modern firearm, the Keltec PR57. This tell me about your thoughts on this, especially since you have a
can I give you a link? Can we
yeah,
play? I have a video for this.
Put it in the private chat.
Yeah, I just gave it to you.
Oh, lovely.
Because we've shot Steyerhahn 1.0. Oh, is it not coming up?
Oh shoot, no, I typed in.
Yeah.
Not actually into the thing. That is funny.
Yeah,
okay,
so this is an old one. And this will tell you ergonomics issues.
Oh man.
So the Steyerhahn does have the ability to eject all the rounds in the magazine, and after is like a siren.
Let me see that again. We gotta slow that down a little bit. Okay.
Oh God!
Oh, that's awful.
Wow.
It's very loud. It's very loud.
Yes.
Yeah, we turn it down.
They're laughing very hard.
Oh, yeah. Oof.
Yeah.
Oh, that hurts my ears.
The reason for that is bad doctrine. Never have 2 buttons do one thing. So the Steyerhahn has a manual safety that will lock the slide open, and then it has a tab that essentially is connected to the left feed lip. And when you press the left feed lip, it pulls down. Well, you press the left feed lip down, it releases the cartridges prematurely. However, because I almost always handled that gun empty, the left feed lip also serves as a lock open. So you're supposed to lock the pistol open with the safety, load the stripper clip, release the safety. But because when you're regularly dry handling it and checking to see if it's empty and just handling it around the place, you just rack it back. You don't use the safety. It locks on the feed lip. And so when you go to release the slide, you hit the feed lip button.
Right.
So in this case, I went to load it properly. I locked it back like I should have with the safety, but then muscle memory is hit this button here, which dumps all the rounds out when there's rounds in there, and it doesn't let the slide go because the other slide holding device is engaged. So it's one of those things like this was actually kind of poorly thought out, that you would mostly handle it in a way that would then prove to dump all your ammo in combat. So
right, if you're actually used to handling other firearms with modern ergonomics, that's interesting. So is it the exact same? Is that the exact? Yeah, that is really awesome. Is that the exact same on the new? Where did I put it?
No, so they don't have a release at all, as far as I can tell. I've talked to a few people that were handling it. At least one person said that they were told that there's no early release. You have to cycle the rounds out. But my guys, like, if you want, I can send you some drawings from the Steyerhahn, and we can go ahead and fix that problem with the retractable feed lip. Feed lip.
So the only way is to manually cycle out 21 rounds if you want to make it safe.
That's what I have heard. Now I haven't handled one, and apparently the one they had is gone now. So
yes, it got stolen from the SHOT Show floor. That is amazing.
Oh my God.
It would happen to Keltec. I kind of think they deserve it.
I want to know what we should, like, if you're the guy that has it, what's the funniest thing you can do now with it,
Yeah, because you can't shoot it. They modify the firing pins, so it's useless, and it's not like you can just pick up another firing
what
pin.
Kind of firing pin?
No.
I mean, if it's just a lathe operation, it can't be that bad.
The funniest thing would be to list it on Gunbroker, like under the name like special SHOT Show only prototype, or something like that, and sell it for like 10 grand. like extort them to get it back or something.
just
But yeah, no,
shitting on it.
hyper illegal.
You're
Hyper
gonna get
illegal.
in trouble. There's got to be like a funny thing you could do with it anonymously and just get it back to them. I can't think of what the thing. Anyway, yeah, it is. And people I'm very proud of the fact that people have lit on the fact that it's a Steyr-Hahn. Like my Discord lit up immediately, going, "Oh, it's a rotating barrel, stripper clip fed gun." Okay, Steyr-Hahn, welcome back. We missed you. And then everybody started speculating on how to unload early, which so far it looks like there's no way to do it. But that's got to be insane. Dry cycling every round is like, that is my nightmare for like boomer NDs, like, because their fingers on the trigger every time.
Yeah,
like every time, finger on the trigger. And so I don't.
I was wondering how they clear a double feed.
Somebody's correcting us on the lathe operation.
Yeah, actually, it's an OD turning operation, not a lathe. That's Nick. Nick's
okay.
an actual machinist, so
That's fine.
I would hope he knows what he's talking
The point being is you could turn one out pretty quick as long as it's such standard looking firing pin. I forgot what we're talking about now.
Well, I think that fortunately enough, most people won't be shooting these, so hopefully they won't be unloading them that often. But
you don't think so?
I don't know if Keltecs are super high volume, like people actually buy them and shoot them all that much. I think they're very cool.
I have a sub 2000 I keep breaking, but it's not the sub 2000's fault. I just keep doing things to it you're not supposed to do to it.
Right, so, like changing out all of the parts to try and make it work.
No, I have a Spike Keltec because I went to look at one because it was funny, and the guy that owns the gun range near me is a friend of mine. And he was just like, "Is this the first modern thing that you look at? If you buy this, I will fight you." And I was like, "Well, now I'm buying one." And so I bought all the accessories to play around with it, and I got the trigger pretty good. I got it where it's cycling nice and soft. I got actually Red Lion makes a cool forend for them. They started doing rotating forends, but they keep screwing it up, and I will have a fight. Actually, I've talked to Kelrin before, but I should do it again. They made it rotate the forend 90 degrees. That doesn't help. The whole reason the Keltec Sub 2000 is great is because it folds up as this flat thing, and everybody does this. They always make folding things, but they don't fold flat. Flat is critical. It's why people like the 1911 or the FN 1900. Flat is good. If it folds up, but then you have this optic sticking out at a right angle, then that whole volume doesn't matter anymore. You haven't saved it. No one has a backpack with a titty in the middle of it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Flat is what we want. And so Red Lion makes a 180-degree rotating forend. So you flip that thing all the way over, lock it out, close it up. It's all flat. Right. And so this, I was so excited when they said they were going to do a rotating forend, and then no, they missed it. It needs to go another 90 degrees. Right. And then, but why not? Why not make it where it could go 90 more degrees? Like, what's the limitation here? I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it's just whatever steel mechanism they have there to twist it and then lock it in place. So, but yeah, I mean, if you're using a micro dot, it's not that big of a deal, but it does.
No, it's still come on, because then you can't throw that in with some books or whatever. You know what I mean? It's a stress riser of some sort, where it's just like it's gonna get hit. So.
Well, anyway, it's one of those things where Keltec takes like 20 years to update a product and then updates it incorrectly.
So I made people mad because I had a Keltec Sub 2000. I just kept to mess with people. I was talking about how much I love it, and I put the Red Lion forend in there, and I got they have all these optic problems for mounting on those things. I found out if you put a pistol scope on it and push it further away to the other end of the gun, works great. And so I was sitting there hitting steel at 200 yards, like 20 for 20. Showing how you could just run a pistol scope on it, and then you can flip it 180 degrees out of the way and use the irons and just hit short range. Yeah, there you go. That's
yeah, this one here was the one I was watching earlier today.
Yeah, Jeff Cooper's Fever Dream.
Yeah. Because this is like your thumbnail on this was like somewhere it's Forgotten Weapons is seething right now or something.
Yeah. Like Ian hates this gun so much.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah, you got a little.
He said something snotty about it, so I was just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna roll with this. But
yeah, so you have like the scout scope on the front end. Yep.
Yeah, that's the Jeff Cooper part. The worst part is I keep handing it to people, and well, right now it's not running again because the one problem with the Red Lion is it doesn't key. It's a pressure fit, and if you don't get it clamped hard enough, it slips when you shoot, which is what it's done again, and I got to go clamp it again. But if you clamp it too hard, it breaks. So it needs to just have some sort of key. But I haven't sat around and fabbed one or messed around with it since poking at it. But it's when it's working, it's freaking great. I just wish they'd find a way to index it.
So yeah, does that optic actually hold 0 because you have to rotate the handguard in and out of the way? Does it have a hard stop?
I made it like 200 rounds before it started slipping forward.
Mm.
And then, to be honest with you, even slipping, it was still hitting at 200. But I just noticed it. Like, the reason I noticed it, I was holding like left edge, and then I had to hold off left, and I was like, wait, what's going on?
Right, it's just moving.
Oh, crap, it's scooting. So it was holding for about 100 rounds before, unfortunately, the whole forend moved, not the optic. That was like a $40 BSA scope off of Amazon that I just got for the correct eye relief. And in the video, you can see me just shooting 200 yards just fine. And then I think I was shooting paddles like right in front of me with the irons. So
yeah, because I think there's a steel down there at the end.
Oh, that might be the 100-yard video. This might be the older one. I did one, I think, where we shot further, but I kept kind of bringing it out, and then honestly, I haven't had time to play with it. I don't know.
It's all right.
Doesn't matter. I've played with it since. I know I've been shooting at 200 easy.
So is that like the most modern you get on firearms? Is some like kind of cool, wacky design out there?
Well, we're just playing around with that. I have modern stuff around here. I just don't, do I have like the defensive use stuff? Yes. Do I have some plates and other modern stuff laying around? Sure. But that's not really our show or a theme. So I try to stay out of it. I get really annoyed at people that wander out of their lane and try to represent it as expertise. If that makes sense. Like, I'm a consumer on that end. I'm not a educator on that end. So I shut up. If that makes sense. Like, so many people get overconfident because they know something about one thing and they just try to be like, well, I'm smart, and they just extend. And
right. If you're an SME, then you think you're an SME and everything. But yeah, I think that happens to a lot of people. Right. Probably myself incled. So
no, I try to keep a very low ego and just go, yeah, I have some modern stuff. I don't really want to. I would show you some of the stuff I'm playing with, but YouTube gets mad about that. But
yeah, YouTube doesn't like gun handling on stream for some reason. I don't know why they're touchy about that.
We had a whole project we wanted to do with our animator where I was like, let's just live stream the animator pulling stuff apart and discovering things as he goes. Like, he could take super chats and stuff, and it'd be really fun. And of course, now they came out with that rule like 6 weeks later. I went, well, there went that idea.
Yep, that's done. I think there is a platform you can do it on. I think you can actually do it on Twitter now. Twitter's like one of the only.
Twitter platforms. Is so video unfriendly, it makes me angry.
Yeah,
we have a deal, like, we work with Player, and then of course I think I've got a sort of just the account signed up for Rumble, but all these alt platforms, the network effects just never work. Like, until there's an actual lockout, everyone's going to keep twisting themselves up to avoid YouTube, and YouTube just gets worse and worse. I'm wondering if the current cultural push will help, but it's hard to say. It's always interesting to me. I don't know if you've noticed this, but we've had this sort of left-right wing fight for a while now. And whenever the right, quote unquote, gains ground, when they create a new platform, when they whatever, it feels like the gun rights tend to be bottom of the barrel for getting the good effects of that. I don't know how to explain it. It's like, oh yeah, like Twitter's like right wing. You can say whatever you want now. It's like, okay, I'm going to put my videos on. Oh, nobody's watching anyway, because all they want to do is like virtue signal. Like, it always becomes because it's a platform that was born out of a political expediency or a political argument of some sort. It becomes a platform that's dictated by making political statements, and therefore going in and having a politically neutral show like ours, because I'm just teaching you a history lesson, has no place, because it gets no network effect, because it's not tooting the horn that everybody's there to toot. So
it's like a Twitter and Instagram. If you can get people to fight or to share your stuff, that's where you blow up and you explode, right? So if it's either funny or it's like aggressive in some way, that's how you're going to get your stuff shared out. If it's just pure information and there's no algorithm pushing you, like X and Instagram are pretty bad about that. Where YouTube, like, if you put out a video, depending on what it is, you can still hit the algorithm and get pushed, right? You have to get lucky, especially for us. It's a little bit harder, but you can still have that happen. But yeah, like Instagram, places like that, like it's nearly impossible.
I've told Ian I'm furious because he keeps getting into random fights with people, but he won't get in one with me, so I can't get any views.
Right.
Like,
it would be good for business, you just gotta start something, man.
I was like, look, let's do like an Andy Kaufman. We'll get it all figured out ahead of time. We'll escalate it, and we'll make sure we get merchandise released at the right time. And he's just like, please God, I've been in enough real fights. I don't want to be in a fake one. I was like, you're really not helping me out here, bud.
That's a good idea. Yeah, you have your merch line set up. You have a fight day.
Yeah. Ian
already
Boo.
ahead of time.
Ian Boo t-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Some like French meme about him or something. Already ready to go.
Croissants suck.
Oh my god.
Or like insult his favorite meme rifle.
I have tortured him before, unfortunately, like many times actually. I could tell you if you want to talk Gundies, I can tell you how I tortured him at Gundies too. But my crowning achievement was we were at a museum conference together, and every time we'd go out for a break on the public floor, because it's the Cody Firearms Museum, everybody looks up and they goes, "Oh crap, that's Ian!" Like they recognize him instantly. And yeah, like 50% of them might recognize me too, but Ian's like the character that they know, you know. So my favorite thing is he and I would be walking and talking, and someone would recognize him, and I'd be like, I was like, "Yeah, it's Ian. Come on, get closer, get a photo." And it's like I would like grab their wife, or I'd grab their camera, and I'd be like, "Yeah, get a photo with him, get them together." And we like physically shove it because he's like a personal space guy, and I'd be like, "No, hug him. He likes hugs." And so it's like I kept like shoving people into Ian, which he really hated. So my crowning moment is like day 2 towards the end. We go out, and this poor kid's just like, "Oh my god, you're Ian McCullum." And Ian ignores he freezes and like looks at me, like whips his head towards me and jumps like 2 feet to the right. So this poor kid's just like, "You're Ian McCullum." And he goes, "Ah!" and just leaps to the right for no reason, like a spaz. And he's like, did I do something wrong?" I was like, "No, he loves hugs." Like,
he's like just trying not to get touched. And just throwing kids
I've programmed him to dodge me instead of paying attention to the fan, which is just really fun.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, yeah, Tiger points out in the chat, Ian's starting fights, but with other people now. Yeah, the VSS video was very polite.
Yeah,
very, very polite.
Incredibly.
Yeah, Funbusters is not polite. Like Matt is apparently not a fan.
Yeah, I mean, for good reason. I mean, if I pulled up a lot of stuff on that, but we don't need to get into all of that. It's just, yeah, the man behind it is a little bit of a madman, which I think that sort of design person like Mark LaRue and some of these other guys that do wacky things, very cool, right? But I think Ian's word on this was this project has as many red flags as a bullfighting convention, so it's a sketchy product.
Matt over at Floodbusters is a friend of mine, and he knows him more personally. And weirdly, I kind of knew about the project ahead of time because Bryce had reached out to me. I can't remember for what years ago, and just not even acquaintance. Like I was just vaguely aware that he knew the guy because he was a mutual. And then next thing I know, everything's blown up, and I'm like, "Oh, I guess I missed drama again," because I always do. But to be honest with you, I hadn't even heard of it until the drama was already cooking because I just wasn't paying that much attention to what was available from SHOT.
Well, I think it's this. This is the post that kind of kicked most things off because Garantham goes to the booth, talks about it. It's his favorite thing there. And
right.
Apparently behind his back talks about him. Now, I actually ran into Micah Mayfield at the show, and he talked about the VSS. He was like, "Dude, you got to go check it out. It's the best thing ever. It's the coolest thing at SHOT." And so until after SHOT, I learned about all this other stuff going down with it and how it's like this giant red flag.
Right.
But yeah.
I don't know. I think the guys, I think Ivan was talking about it, where Ivan's very good at looking at mechanisms. It's hard to explain. There's these guys that are capable of telling very careful they're capable of observing details that are discrepancies between two firearms. I tend to be one of those guys where as long as I know the firearm, or at least can get some sort of schematic, you can show me the next schematic and I'll instantly go, these 3 parts are different. Like I can tell instantly. My animator tends to be that way too, because he and I look at that. We actually had this with the Mondragon rifles, which is a boring story, but long story short is we were shown a pair of rifles that were supposed to be 1908s, and we went, "No, these are pre-production." And the owner's going, what do you mean they're pre-production? And I went, these are not in serial order, because it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say, and we're going 3 existed before 1. And he's going, "That's not possible." I'm like, "Yes, it is. You can have pre-production that's serialized, and then you can have serial production. And this is not the gun you think. This is a pre-production number 3. That is a production number 1. And you can tell because look at all of these things." And that tends to be the way we think. Well, apparently Ivan, I was watching their content, and he said he believes that this is a copy of a blank fire version of the VSS, not a copy of the VSS itself.
Right. Yeah. He says it looks like a blank firing kit build.
But I do not have. I haven't dug into it that much, to be honest with you. So
yeah, I do. That was one of the big like reproduction things to come out of SHOT Show that everybody was excited for about 5 minutes.
Well, I mean, everybody wants things to exist affordably, especially. That's the other problem, is nobody wants to pay the cost of what it takes to make a thing.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That's-
Who wants to front the $1 million to get the production of
That's-
all of these one-off parts?
everybody wants clone collect semi-automatic STGs. Nobody wants to pay the amount of money it would take to be able to get the stamping set up correctly. And so then they start hedging on, well, what if we did it this way or that way? And then you lose the people that want clone correct.
How many of those guys put down $6,500 pre-orders?
Yeah, talking about HMG back in the day.
Yeah,
that is an other mess. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say. I'm actually friends with the H of HMG, and he got tied up with the. I don't know how many people you followed, but the original thing, not the PSA stuff, but back in the day, the HMG stuff.
Yes.
He got tied up with guys that signed a contract to do the production of parts for him, and then they just completely fell through on it, and then it got into a huge legal battle. And they did everything they could to drag their feet, and he could not keep that court case moving through civil court. And so that's why it just became this quagmire. And he wasn't really allowed to do anything to go around it, because if he goes around it, then he loses his, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer. So that moved around a lot. Now he's done a lot to try to bring in the market after that, but of course, not being I can't say much. Like, I can't get into somebody's personal.
Yeah, whatever you don't want to get into.
Let me give you this as an example. Samuel Colt, to get a gun company off the ground from nothing, to take a project out of nowhere, you have to have someone that's capable of doing the work, and you have to have someone who's capable of lying through their teeth to get the money in at the same time. Now, many, many times, someone is capable of doing the work, but they can't lie through their teeth to get, like, they can't be essentially an immoral salesman and get the money up front to get the project done.
Yeah, usually it's two different people.
Right. But most people can't do that. So what you end up is there's tons and tons of cool things that have been ready to be made, but no one knew that they were ready to be made because they couldn't get the capital up, and none of us have known it. So that's the silent collapse of things that were never made. Their projects we'll never hear about. We never knew. Those guys died in darkness, right?
Yep.
Then you have all these projects that we remember as scams or as collapsed projects or just complete failures, in which somebody got the hype up, but they didn't have the ability to deliver the construction. That's what we're used to, and we think that represents everything we see, but that's because we can't see the other half of it. Yeah. Samuel Colt is the man who lied through his teeth and then somehow still made the goddamn thing. Like, he's like the best of both worlds. He actually got the stupid thing built. He claims he invented every piece of it, but hell if we know. We don't know who invented what on it, to be sure, you know? But he lied through his teeth and managed to kick someone else's ass enough in terms of manufacturing and hiring people and getting a machine put together that he actually made the product. And then, thank God he rode the wave, because you got to create the wave and then you got to ride the wave. And so this is another one of those things where it's like the wave and the production did not match up. Public opinion turned against. And then also, even without the public opinion, if you're frozen legally, what do? And then at the same time, it's a design that has to take into a bunch of take into compromises so that you have availability of parts and blah blah blah. And once you have compromises, the historical guys like me are like, I'm not that interested. I don't want an almost STG.
Right. Yeah, that happens a lot too.
You can argue changing from open to closed bolt for legal reasons. You can do all that stuff, but it's very hard to argue about like definitive external changes that you can recognize on a glance. And so these projects tend to fall apart that way. The reproduction world is very vicious, and that's why you never see them. Like,
well, and it's a smaller segment of the market, admittedly, right? So it's I think
it can be. I think you can also get mass interest in it. It's just like, I mean, look at the H&R line where they got up Nodak Speg. Like, there's a lot of interest around that right now, and there's people are begrudgingly starting to buy them. I mean, I did because I wanted to do something to test some early accessories. And so I'm just like, I'm not gonna go beat up an original, and I'm not gonna spend the money on it anyway. So let me see what happens if I get an upper and lower from this and put it together. And it's like, actually, this is a lot of fun, and it's very affordable for what it is. So in that realm, there's a lot to be done, but that makes use of existing tooling and things that were already available to the market. And there's a ton of interest around the AR. So yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the sales driver in the US, right? But speaking of projects that die in the dark, yeah, the only NDA I ever signed was for a product that, never came out, never had a video, never had a picture taken, like nothing.
Are you still under it?
I don't think so. I just looked in my Google Drive to see if I could find the original
Yeah,
NDA.
be careful, because that might be the only way they're going to make money is you open your mouth.
Yeah, just me. I'm actually curious. Let me see if I can find this. Oh, dude, it is here. Let's see. I found my NDA. It was sitting in my drive. July 30th, 2020 is when I signed it. How long is it? If it's 5 years, I have 6 more months.
We'll cover it in 6 months.
I'll cover it in 6 months. Yeah, but anyways, it was a handgun from an interesting manufacturer, and it never saw the light of day.
Yeah.
I talked like every year I would get an update on it. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna fly you out here and talk about it at this release. And it's like, and it was a very similar situation where it was like they had the like a prototype, but then the people that were trying to make it were not actually delivering. Right. So they gave him X amount of money to make the thing, and then they didn't make the thing. And so it was just this whole fallout. And it ended up, as far as I know,
it's very similar
it's done.
That would be similar to the HMG situation, like where a third-party manufacturer just fell through so horribly.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and that's what happened. And I'm pretty sure that is also an illegal battle because there was money transferred from one party to another, as far as I understand it. And so they're trying to either get that money back, because, very similar story.
The problem
they said they could do something and couldn't.
You get hungry to get something done, and you try to make a deal with someone, and, you can try to do your the bar repros. Yeah, they did sell pretty. I don't know how many units they've moved. I don't know what they would say that. The question I would have is Ohio ordinance, like, how much money did they make per hour of effort versus if they did something else? Because a lot of companies do that assessment,
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard to understand how much you did or didn't make out of a passion project like that versus doing real normal work. I guess not real work, but something more. I
mean, there is definitely a market there, and it's probably a really tenacious market for some of this stuff.
It depends.
Right?
The narratives move. Like, 50 years ago, cowboy guns were still cool, but now.
So there is a market for some of them. The SVD, did you happen to see that one? It's originally a bolt-action precision rifle company who decided that market was so saturated they weren't going to be able to make any headway. Right. So they shifted and they started a one-to-one reproduction of actual SVDs. Here, I've got the link for you. I popped it in chat, John.
Now, see, that's good because that's a prestige item, so they can charge a very large amount of money for that.
And it's being made in Texas. It's out of stainless steel for the most part. They even got the stampings correct to the point to where they can use their new parts on existing rifles that need spare products.
So the question is, what do they say the cost is going to be?
I think they said it's going to be 6,000.
Yeah, that
sounds about right. I was going to guess that or higher.
People will pay that, but it's also going to be unpopular at the low end.
So they also offer this version here, which has a different handguard that comes with M-Lock forend, and it comes with a Picatinny rail. And they will also be offering a second dust cover to come with that one, so that way you don't have to chop your original dust cover for the extended Picatinny rail.
No, they haven't done any serial production at all, right? They've just done a couple one-offs.
I think these are the first ones here, are just the ones that they brought to shot.
But they're not
production.
Yeah, are they tuned up to do production?
This to me is like the vaporware problem, where it's like, hey, we have a product here. There's one in existence, and we paid $10,000 for this prototype. If we make another one, like maybe, right?
Well, to be fair, actually, if they paid $10,000 for that prototype, then actually they might be on the way. Like, that's the funny thing is, you're trying to get a $6,000 gun.
A lot of this is stampings, and it seems to be ready for production. Like the top cover.
Well, I mean, it's like last year when PSA was showing off like some different 5.7 models and a few other their prototypes. And if you look inside, it's all like 3D printed stuff shoved together for the show, right?
Yeah.
And like this year, now it's only half 3D printed stuff shoved inside to make it ready for the show.
To be fair, I'm an NDA'd on one of those 3D printed things that was shown from PSA the other day. So I do know that there's 3D printing inside of it because I handled it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it happens a lot. Like, the prototyping phase is utterly wild. Moving to production is very difficult. I believe, I think the one thing I would probably be most excited for that's maybe realistic would be like the K2. People are talking about the Daewoo coming back.
Oh yeah.
That one's believable. I don't know that they're going to meet their price expectation. I think they said 1,200 or something, but everybody got hyped on that price, and then I'm going, that guy hesitated when he said it. You know what I mean? Like there was a long pause.
Well, that's another thing that kills hype is when a company has a price target, and then 6 months, a year later, it's like, oh, same thing. Now it's 50% higher in price.
Yeah,
and then
you
lose all of the hype that you had, right?
Never name the price. Like not until it's unless you're trying to take some sort of pre-order. But then if you're pre-ordering already, people should be suspicious at this point because that's just not a thing anymore. Like there's been so many bad deals with that. But
okay, so they said the base model is actually going to be 4,000.
But who?
The SVD.
Is it SV? What's the name of the company? SVT?
No. SVT is a different rifle. You're getting the chat confusing you. Guys, he doesn't know what old guns are. He doesn't know.
That's not my. Well, old guns, are one thing, but then it's like old foreign guns. Yeah, that's another level of I have no idea.
Yeah. But
let's see,
by the way, I'm not trying to say they're not going to produce that thing. I'm not trying to disparage them at all because I don't know any details about it. But I am saying that if they pull it off, if those guys pull off the SVT at a reasonable price, don't just buy it. Congratulate them. You know what I mean? Because it is a very difficult undertaking. We're not sitting here trying to say, oh, these guys aren't going to pull it off. We're trying to say they are in for a world of hurt before this is done. So the challenges are extreme to get something like that to market. So if they pull it off, give them every bit of applause, It just depends on what they're asking you to do. Are they asking you to put cash down, or are they just telling you that they're going to start offering them up for sale?
Ooh,
I know
no pre-orders.
That's
no pre-orders.
They're
not doing pre-orders.
I'm not going to show the page, but it does say the base model is $4,000.
I don't know what I'm allowed to say, but there's I know of a guy that's quietly assembling a very rare rifle off of parts kits with new made receivers and selling them right now. He's not taking pre-orders. He's only selling completed units as he gets them done. They're very pricey. Right. But I don't know if I'm allowed to say that publicly yet or not. I'm actually not sure what he wants me to do about it. But
well, just in general, that's the way to do it, though. To sell the product that you actually have, versus depending that some third party and fourth party is going to get you the parts on time.
If you think about it, if you can assemble 10 of these things and put them on Gunbroker, you're going to fund the next 50 because everybody's going to be like, whoa, what is that? What's going on here?
Yeah.
So, I mean, for the honest person to put them together, there's going to be a way of taking on some debt in order to get the product to market. When you do this pre-order thing, you're asking everybody else to take on the debt for you, and then when you fail, they lose, you don't. That's a harder sell unless you have something backing you up,
Well, that's what we just went through with the Alex Trigger Empire thing, where the guy took $35,000 in pre-orders, and to date, I think hasn't delivered a trigger yet. So, yeah. And I mean, $36,000 in the grand scheme of things is a low amount for some of these companies in terms of how much money they've taken in.
I don't know. It's difficult. I understand why people want to do that, and they think that they're going to get most of these guys. I think believe they're going to get it done. Although I don't know. You guys know Ponzi schemes, right?
They're very familiar.
Yeah. So, have you ever actually watched a documentary about Ponzi himself?
Mm-mm.
So everybody likes to beat him up and use his name that way, but he actually had found a error in the exchange rate of essentially stamps. It's not really stamps, but it was a shipping guarantee or whatever. And he was like, wait a second, if I could just go to Italy or whatever and buy up enough of these stamp things, then I can exchange them for this much value of mailing. And so double my money, but it's not really cash. So then I have to liquidate it. But first, let me get these in my hands. So let me take, he took this investment idea out there and started getting investors. And since it was guaranteed money, all the money flowed in. Well, then he was so happy with money flowing in, he forgot to go buy the damn stamps and figure it out. And also, he got to a point where no one's letting him get away with buying this many stamps. You know what I mean? There's no way he can go take a small country's GDP over and buy stamps with it. So once they figured out what was going on with that, they're like, well, wait, hold on, we're closing that down before he can do it. And now he's sitting there with all his money going, I can't do the investment idea I had, but he's just robbing Peter to pay Paul now to keep the thing going.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's he meant to do a thing that would have worked, but once the money came in, he forgot to do the thing, which is actually very true of a lot of this stuff. Or you hit a stumbling block and you go, uh-oh, I didn't foresee this, but now I'm playing with other people's money. Whoops.
Yes.
So that's
well,
why,
that's the thing too, is people see all the money coming in, especially like you're a new hot young guy in the industry. And so now you
right.
have all this cash and you're like, oh, well, that's going to continue to come in. I'm going to be able to pay this and then move my money around to actually make this whole thing work. And nothing bad is going to happen in the interim. Right.
Also,
And then one thing goes wrong and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, now we're screwed.
I also hate to say it, but when you're hungry, you fight harder. And some guys, like, they stop being hungry when the first wave of money comes in and they forget to fight harder. Or even with the money coming in, they already have stuff set up so that they're not going to be beholden to a bunch of lawsuits. And they're just like, well, I've got family money, I've got whatever's going on. I can sit back, my bills are paid. This is just a nuisance to me. Well, if it's just a nuisance to you, then it's going to always annoy you and you're never going to be dedicated to getting it done. Like, sometimes a little stress goes a long way.
Well, I think it's also a motivation thing, right? Like if I paid you like 10 grand up front for a project that needed to be done by the end of the month, like you would probably wait. I mean, most people, not saying you specifically, but most people might wait towards like the end of the month to actually get it done, right? Because I have the money, right? Versus if I said, hey, after you finish, I'll give you 10K. Most people would, like, as soon as they could, finish that product to get that money, right? So I think it changes the dynamic when you already have the cash in hand versus having to actually finish the thing to then earn that money.
I'm vaguely trying to keep an eye on chat, but I'm not doing a very good job yet.
Oh, well, we do have a lot of super chats to get through and a few questions that I put in here. So we can probably just transfer really to that. Sorry for being so delayed on these guys, but thank you very much for the support tonight. Keegan J says, hey, Othias, can't wait for the Nambu light machine gun episodes. The Type 11 and 99 are ready. The 96 is coming sometime.
Yeah, I know exactly who this is then, so you just doxed yourself. Good job. But no, this is a gentleman that's going to loan me some light machine guns hopefully later this year. I got to see what we're doing for travel. We're working on the new studio, so we have a travel moratorium, my friend, temporarily.
Very cool.
Unless you want to come here and party, because then that's easier. But
hey, machine guns sounds like a good time to me. Nice. Andrew Vachon for $4.99 says, loving Keltec isn't the worst thing. You could be a
say that carefully. Be very careful.
A filthy cigger. Sorry, I'm late. Not even sure if we're still talking about Keltec. Well, now we are, sir. So thank you so much for the $5. Actually, Andrew, funny story. So I had to cancel Andrew's order for one of my uppers because Geisley told me that the barrels might not be in stock until June. My order shipped this morning, so sorry for canceling your order, but yeah.
Do it again.
Really bad timing. Yeah.
I
have the rest of the parts downstairs, but
I love Keltgren and I love Keltec. I hate to say it. Like everybody dumps on them, but I'm going to tell you, they set their price point according to their quality. Like everybody gets mad. Like, I can't believe this $400 gun isn't perfect. I'm like, bro, it unfolds like Megatron, and you spent $400. Let's go. Like, okay, fine. Yeah, I can't bet my life on this. Why the hell are you betting your life on Megatron? Like, just take the win. Like,
it's cool. Listen, okay, Transformers Series 1 was the best. Okay, you know.
Yeah. No, I love it. Also, by the way, just so everybody knows, the clip-fed Keltec is not new. The Grendel 10 did that. The P10, like the original Grendel did that. It was
that's the one that they banned because it was or was that the P30?
I don't remember which one got banned.
One of them was the 22 Magnum that was basically a little bit too easy to convert.
There was that. Have you guys seen? Speaking of that, open bolt is not illegal. It's just that they keep calling it readily convertible. So again, Fudbusters Matt LaRusse here. I'm sorry, I've been mentioning him a lot, but he and I discuss a lot of things that have to intersect with this. He did a gun called the Backpacker, and there's like a parts kit, and you can 3D print it. It's an open bolt gun that's perfectly legal. So it's actually kind of fun because it just sort of like you throw one in, and it goes poop, and it ejects it for you, and it sits there open. So you just thumb one in, poop, thumb one in, poop.
So where does that misnomer come from that it's illegal?
It's because of the readily convertible part. Matt can give you. Actually, you guys really need to get Matt in here if you want to talk legal, because it's.
I would love to tell him. I would tell him I want to get him on.
I've told him myself, like, if he's kind of excitable, and so he starts sending it. He starts sending it with a lot of energy and jokes and almost zoomerisms that I'm too old to understand, even though we're not that far apart. But if I could just settle him down into a more, if I could like box him up into a professional setting, the things he says would probably make him the premier 2A guy of our generation. But he suffers a similar problem from me, which is that he's too slow on the gun, because like something will get released and everybody runs to YouTube to be like, is this the end of the NFA? Meanwhile, you have to read 17 pages of this garbage and cross-reference it to be sure of what's even happened. So he comes out like 2 weeks later, because he's got a real job too, actually defending someone that's in prison, you know. And
he's still working on the CRS case, right?
Oh my god, the Hoover case is an absolute mess. I know he's in appeals. There's some private stories there that whenever that gets resolved, you guys have got to hear some of the insanity that is happening.
Well, I used to talk to Matt, because we would talk about projects back and forth, because he has some of my stuff, and you know, he would ask me questions about different things or whatnot, and so I've been following that.
The Hoover case is absolute horseshit. Like, I'm sorry, but I don't know why, but I feel like I shouldn't. If I just tell you that this is an illegal machine gun, can I go to prison? Like,
Sure.
it's equivalent to what happened.
It's the same property.
Like, if I
draw something on here, right, that vaguely looks like an auto sear, do I go to jail?
My favorite part is they couldn't get it to work. Like, they couldn't. Their own expert witness was like, "Yeah, we got it to fire like
they
2
lied
or 3 round bursts."
They
managed to they basically broke the disconnector. That's all they did. They used really light primers and broke the disconnector they jammed it in there, broke the disconnector. Well, you know, made it not work. Mm-hmm. And then that caused hammer follow. Hammer follow is not a machine gun. Yes, you can make a machine gun by having the world's lightest primers with a gun with hammer follow, but that's not really making
there are wacky things you can do to make that work.
Right. So in other words, they cut it all out, and they cut it out without following the lines and played with it for however long and got it to not work the way it said it worked and called it a win. Like, it's just utterly insane to me. But so while we're on this, you should talk more to Matt about this, but I will say one thing. All these Second Amendment groups, you know what I never hear any of them saying? Hey, help us raise money so that the person who is currently in jail or facing legal trouble can have their bills paid and they can focus on just defending themselves. Like, why is no one paying his wife and children's bills while he's in prison if we're donating millions of dollars as a community? Like, does nobody want to do this while he's stuck? Because this is, by the way, every one of these cases that falls apart is because people plead out because they can't survive. Their family can't survive fighting it.
Right. It's a battle of attrition against a company or an organization with a blank check.
Hoover had a chance to cave. I mean, you know he did. But he fought it because he knew he was innocent of something. But now he's facing an undue punishment because of his family being, you know, not only away from him, but also deprived of his income. Mm-hmm. Why is it we keep raising all this money to raise more money? We pay the attorneys some amount of money, but really not as much as we raise. And then we don't give the families anything to help them survive the attack. If every person that ever got sued by or arrested by the government for an NFA violation or whatever it is, if all these people that on the fringes of this, if you knew for a fact that the minute you got caught out like this, if you went to court and said, I'm not guilty, don't worry, one of the big orgs is going to come in and actually pay your bills. Your house is going to be still there when you get out. You know, there's going to be more people that are willing to sit there and just sit in a prison cell just to say F you to the government. But no one can handle having their family attacked like that. Like, it's
I mean, he's got daughters, right? It's I've got 3 young kids, so like that idea does terrify me, because I am one ATF visit away from going to jail forever, right? It's like they show here and it's like constructive intent with this device or whatnot, you know. They could just make something up, right?
Right. And it's just like, but what happens if you're like, actually, you know, last time around this organization, you know, he was stuck. Yeah, he was stuck for 3 years in prison, but all the family's bills were paid. It was fine, because it's really like, for as much as they raise, it's not a bad use of it, but I think they kind of flex it around in other ways to do more fundraising instead. I don't know. I'm not that deep into other guys' pocketbooks on this front, but I would really like to see funds that go towards making it sort of a cushion for how much fallout you get while you're fighting the charges. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But Matt can talk more about that. You should talk to him.
Yeah, we'll have to get him on for that. I actually, from last stream, I need to get to these. I actually missed some. Latest hour, he commented again, but he said, my dad's name is Trip for $10. So I actually missed that last time, but thank you for that. I guess. Yeah, I mean, he commented again today, though, so I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that he did that last time as well. Two things.
Kiss your dad for us.
You know what's funny is there is a town in South Dakota also called Trip.
I mean, it's a name.
TRIPP. I know, but it's like I didn't make it because it was my
I'm
name.
in the South.
It
That's
has
a normal name here. That's not even a weird name. You're
Yeah,
just
I didn't even know that.
Could you believe people are named Kevin?
Well, it's funny because I called my channel Focus Trip because originally I was doing car stuff, and then the trip with 1P was taken, so I just put 2Ps on there. And so, yeah, that's how it is. But latest Sarah says 2 things. My dad's name is Trip, and he's a good man. That's good to hear. He also says my Keltec was a blue P32. Second was an RFB. I do want to try out the Keltec bullpups. I think that would be fun. I think that would be a good time.
I have shot the RDB once. It was fun. I have not gotten any hands-on with the RFB, and I did like the SU-16. That one was fun.
The RFB is the 308, right?
Yeah, that's the 308, and I think they have a 6.5 Creedmoor as well. It's the forward ejecting.
Those are the closest you'll ever get to a bullpup foul.
Yeah.
Like if you actually look at it, like if you really look inside, you're gonna be like, wait a second.
Hey, this looks familiar. Yeah. A plastic bullpup foul. Nick for $5 says, I've been reading tons of employee reviews of high-end rifle manufacturers and 2011s, and literally all of them are crappy and very cheap employers.
Yes. The gun industry is dominated by the same thing as politics, geriocracy. I can't pronounce the word. Old people are in charge.
Geriocracy.
Yeah,
that's a funny one.
Yeah, but they're dominated by guys that are sitting on, because most of the available capital is held by the eldest people in the market, and so you don't have a lot of young rich guys throwing money around like you would in tech. So, or I don't know, tech tends to also have some leeway where the old guys are just like, you guys know what you're doing, but in the gun world, it's just like, I know what I'm doing, and you're like, uh-oh. So the purse strings are controlled by people that are very pinchy about it, and then a lot of people want to be in the gun industry, like there's a prestige there, and so pay is just abysmal because everyone wants to be in the industry,
right? They're like, I want to work with guns, so I'm going to work for $14 an hour assembling a $3,000 rifle. That's my favorite.
You're not like an oil driller where it's just like, I don't want to live there for 3 months. It's like, well, I guess we have to pay you to get out here, gun industry people are just like
trying to get in.
If I can pay my bills at all, I'll do this until I die.
Well, that's the thing that I kind of hate is that it's funny to think that a PSA Freedom rifle and a, Knight's Armament are assembled by the exact same wage labor. And it's like, I feel like one of those things shouldn't be like the other, but somehow it is in this industry. So
my favorite is like, I don't know, people are always like, well, people won't work for those wages like they will in the gun industry, like just to stay near what they love. Yeah, they will.
Yeah. Well, it's like I told the story when Zev was hiring in Washington for assemblers on their handguns, which are like really expensive Glock clones. They were paying minimum wage for their assemblers, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, guys, you're going for like LEO contracts and other things. Like you gotta like.
Yeah, but you don't understand. If I give them that money, then I don't have it.
I guess
there is an element of like, yeah, but, and you see these guys, they always want to deal the cards that way, where they're just going, yeah, but somebody will do it for this number, and you're going, yeah, they will, but you're going to have all these other problems. It's like, no. As soon as we get 30 people who are willing to just stay like that, we'll be fine. And they keep doubling down on that because the upfront cost is sort of taking it. And by the way, even if they pay the extra, they're going to have some turnover, and so they're like, well, see, we have turnover anyway. And so they just get stuck. Like,
well, yeah, dude. Well, that's like I worked in the steel industry, which was also manufacturing parts and whatnot. And the floor turnover for the base worker was like 70% over 6 months.
I don't doubt it.
But our high-end CNC guys that we were paying a lot of money for, those guys stuck around, right? Because the money was good. They were more talented labor.
Oh, and they had benefits out the butt, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, we literally couldn't get rid of them, right? It was like the if they're gone, like we stopped making money.
Right.
So yeah. Andrew Vachon for $4.99 says, "Love the Titman guys. Fort Wayne, New Haven represent. I cannot recommend those guys enough."
I've always had fun hanging out with them whenever I see them at events. So
yeah, it's cool to see niche products in the industry.
They also
so anybody doing that stuff is cool.
They'll do full auto skeet shooting sometimes, which is really fun.
Ooh,
have you seen that?
I have not. That sounds like
they'll 22.
No, they'll find a downhill and they'll run a clay thrower high down.
Okay.
And so it's going down range under the berm, and then they'll have a 22 full auto, and you'll just like try to lead it like a anti-air gun.
Dude, yeah.
It's so fun.
22 tracers, that would be hilarious.
Oh no, I haven't done with tracers. You're just like you got to blind.
No,
fire.
I know, but I'm just visually, I think that would be really cool.
Oh
So,
yeah, it'd be great.
We used to do airsoft, and you'd have glow in the dark BB, so you could see him.
Oh, he's one of those guys.
Josh for $5 says, "Can you show how that pump loader works again?" I already did that for you, sir, but I'm sure you enjoyed the motion.
Go watch the Funbusters video.
Tusk has an actual question, serious question. BSD 1842 Springfield mag-fed conversion kits. Your thoughts?
Is that a thing? What is that?
I don't know. You just typed it in chat.
Is that a thing?
I figured you would be the expert on that.
I'm not good at conversions.
BSD 1842.
Is this a thing?
I don't know.
Oh yeah, Macon pattern conversion. Oh, the Macons. I haven't played with one, to be honest with you.
Oh.
Wait, I can't even find.
No, that's not it.
I haven't played with one. I haven't gone that. You know what's funny is I haven't done any of the Springfield work yet because we're working our way. Oh, God, it's a mess. So we started with a World War I focus, which is where all my library is. And then we've been walking sort of backwards slowly and forward slowly into the interwar. And so I have not gotten pre-Civil War on anything except we did jump way back in time and start working forward on the Colt stuff because it was just something to do with the repercussion series. It gave us some availability and let us get some black powder in without it being too crazy or expensive. So I am like woefully under-equipped on pre-Civil War or even a lot of Civil War right now. Mostly, you got to imagine, because people are always surprised at this thing where it's just like, aren't you familiar with that? Because you're already familiar with these hundreds of other things. And I'm like, I don't actually have the time to casually peruse. And even if I did, I have to be really careful because you can pick up bad data that way. So I can't really like Wikipedia or web forum a firearm to gather rough information without risking getting the wrong information. And it'll get stuck in my brain because I'm just a stupid human being. And it'll come out at the wrong moment. And then it'll be like, everybody like, rah! Because they know, because it's like the 6 guys that know about it end up watching it, you know? So I always have to be careful because it's like, even now I went to quickly look up this conversion and I'm going, oh yeah, that is a thing, but I haven't played with it and I haven't read down on it. And I'm going to have to spend about half an hour, like actually looking into it to make any real opinion.
Right, actually finding good data rather than just going, you know, off.
Yeah, and half the time it could be 10 minutes of crap. Well, I don't know about this, but people ask me about some random like carbine from the Civil War, and I'll go, let me look into this. I'm like, well, if I spend $142 now, a week from now I'll have a book, and I can read that for 45 minutes, and then I will have a fairly good opinion, you know. So I get trapped because I basically know what I've already done episodes on, and that's about all I know.
Well, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to do 10 hours to answer this one commenter's question.
Well,
you know, for no value, basically.
To be fair, if you're a more casual person, you gotta understand these guys that are into tanks and guns and planes and stuff, and they'll go read Wikipedia article, and it gets them a skeleton assembly of some things, and they understand the memetics of it, not just memes, but the sort of the impression and oral history of what it is to be that gun, the sort of associations around it. Many times those are untrue, or many times they are. I'm often the party pooper. I'll come in and be like, guys, that did not happen. However, here's all the primary source data for why that didn't happen. So I have to be a little cautious because I've learned that I can ingest the wrong data unless I take everything seriously. And also, at some point, you got to figure we do a documentary every other week, so I am doing a deep dive on 2 to 3 firearms at a time. Over and over and over again, and you see them within about a month and some change of me digging into them. So I really only know about 2.5 more guns than you think I do, because you've seen everything else I've done.
Right. That's actually funny. So how does that process work for you then? Do you have everything scheduled out like in advance?
It's brutal. I try to get each episode done research wise in a week, which doesn't. It's hard to explain. I have to do like seeding. I have to sort of go, okay, here's the next 10 things I can work on. I'll spend an evening looking for all the research data I can on them. Sometimes I get caught and I have to call in favors like I did this time. But I'll look for all the data I need, then order the data because I'll have to go spend like $500 on books or something. or dig through a bunch of archives or ask somebody to dig through archives for me. And sometimes some of the guns fall off the list. Actually, most of the time, they'll be like, I have these 10 guns I can work with. I have 3 guns I can work with because 7 of them require me to send somebody to Belgium or something,
Oh, right.
So then I work with what I can, and the rest go on sort of a hot burner. And then as things come in, I can roll them back into production. So it's sort of this pre-effort of just gathering the data. It takes a few hours. Then, whenever things are staged up right, we try to release 2 episodes a month. And the way that would work is you figure you got 4 weeks to produce 2 episodes. You try your best to produce those 2 episodes on a 3-week cycle so that you get an extra week for every 2 episodes. That extra week is always consumed by bullshit overhead and pushback and delays and then travel or whatever else you're doing. So it tends to be a script week for episode A, a script week for episode B, film them for 2 days, and then edit them for the rest of that week. But in all that mix, inevitably something blows up. You got to go out and film outdoors. You got to do hand loading for an entire day. You end up in like 2 copyright disputes at once, like I am this week.
Well, I bet that's a nightmare. Just the loading of like these random old cartridges that you have to get.
Right?
Right?
Oh, don't even. Like you're buying $150 of dye to make 20 rounds for 1 episode, and then so it's fun.
Hey, but I mean, it allows you to do what you love doing, though, right?
Yeah, in theory, we should be pulling ahead by about 3 days for every 2 episodes. That never happens. I just end up burning all my weekends. Yeah. So,
well, it was like last night. I finished writing the script at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's like, okay, time to wake up to do more stuff. So
yeah. Right now we're brutal because we're trying to build a new studio to replace this one. Because this is. I live in 1,200. This is the other thing. So Forgotten Weapons here, right? Many dollars a year, and then we're like generally perceived as second behind them. Not many dollars. I think
that's the cool thing. It doesn't take that much money.
If I could make like senior management at a local McDonald's, I'd probably have the same pay. Like it is. You would be amazed at how many hours. And by the way, that's working 70 hours minimum a week, pretty much. So I'm working like 1.5 jobs to make 1 mediocre job's salary. I do get to play with a lot of cool stuff, and that goes under the business's name. And one day there might be a payout from that when I finally dump it all and retire.
Right. Well, actually, that's funny. Is that's your retirement plan? Is all of these antique firearms that were business expenses at one point?
Well, sort of, because we actually borrow a lot. We don't own, like, everybody thinks we own everything. It's like, no, a lot of this is like hoarders that don't want to keep it in their house, so they're kind of happy. But actually, some of that's why I'm redoing the studio. I'd like to kind of get the wall of gun pared down so that I can not be responsible for somebody's stuff if it catches fire.
Right.
So no, I don't have even enough to, like, I've actually blown myself out of my own collections. Like, I've kind of almost given up on collecting other than just the ad hoc thing that I see for the right price, because I've driven interest into categories that now I can't compete in because we don't have the money people think we do. So I don't know. I'm very cheap. I had a whole argument on a stream with someone else earlier this week because I was just like, oh, look at me, mister, paid more than $4,500 for a car, because I've literally never done that. Like, I have not bought a vehicle for over $5,000 ever. That's not the life I live.
Actually, yeah, the last vehicle I bought was $5,000.
Yeah.
And my other car's worth like $1,200. So.
Like, he's like, no, you get like a Toyota for like 12, and I'm just like, look at me, mister, can spend 5 figures on a car.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. If you live really simply, like if your expenses aren't all that much, then you don't need.
See, I live really complex, but I do it really cheap and weird. So like, I buy garbage and fix it and F around with my friends. That's what I do. But also, I don't have any children. If I had children, there'd be no show. I could not afford a family on.
It's a little more difficult. Yeah, for sure.
There's no way.
We did our financial stream last week, and it was like YouTube made like $1,000 in profit, and then my company made like $6,000 in profit. So if I didn't do videography and other things, like it would be impossible.
We had the first year we were profitable. We had, back then, I think you had to pay into Patreon, would only pay into other digital accounts. I wouldn't pay straight to bank that year, I guess.
Oh, okay.
And so I had to go to PayPal. So they both generated 1099s for the same amount of money, and it triggered an audit. So the audit came like
Ooh.
4 years later, though, during
no, that happened to me too. Yeah.
But they hit me during COVID. So the IRS is telling me we're going to send you to prison essentially because they kept sending me notices, and I would send responses like, "Hey, it's just a duplicated amount. Here's the amount. I can track it all." No one's there. It goes through inbox, and then no one responds. But the automated system is still sending me a summons to court. So I have to go get an attorney, and then the state gets involved, and they want to audit, and they rip me apart left and right. I'm spending all the attorney's like, "Oh, this will be done. It'll be like $2,000 out of your pocket." $15,000 later, of either paying between the attorney and them or whatever else, and it's just like that year. That was the year that we first went into the quote unquote black because I worked so hard that year because we didn't have Bruno the Animator or anything else. I picked like one night a week on average to not sleep is how I did that year. And then my net profit going in the black was like $10,000. And now COVID's hit, and somehow in the chaos of all of this, between paying the government because of receipts I can't get because it's COVID time, and paying the attorney because he has to file over and over and over and argue, and it became a whole mess. I made negative $50,000 retroactively, and I went, "This is slavery." And I empathize with Papa Ted, like Uncle Ted, and I are friends now. Like I'm like,
you know what? I'm gonna start mailing some packages around.
Yeah. I was just like, I worked so hard for that year, and they took all of it. Like I was so curious.
Yeah. Well, so that's actually very funny because a very similar thing happened to me where the IRS was like, "Hey, by the way, you owe us $30,000," and I'm like, "No, I don't. Nope, that's never happened. I've never had a surplus of anything." But I was incredibly lucky that through the service that I use, they had a where they would defend you in an audit automatically.
Yeah.
So I didn't pay a dime out of pocket. They settled it with the IRS. I showed them all the receipts and everything, and that was it. So I lucked out in that regard. So hearing you spend 15 grand, like, whew.
It was friggin' awful. Like the whole thing was just such a mess. And I'm just going, and I get it. Like I was working such crazy hours. I had bad bookkeeping. So there was some of it was on me in that regard. But if they had hit me the year before COVID, I would have been able to just go into the IRS office and say, "Hey, the discrepancy you're seeing is almost to the dime the amount of money that was duplicated on these two accounts." Because that's what happened with the state. The state let me go into their office. So when I went to the state's office and showed it to them, they went, oh, okay, we don't need you here at all. We're fine. I was like, okay, good. And then I made the cardinal mistake because I was just like, now I just got to sort it with the Fed. And they're like, "Oh, wait, the Fed saw this?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, we'll wait on them." And I went, "What?" So then the state was like, "Well, they're going to audit. We're going to." Like I was so close to being done with half of it. I was like, okay, I've learned to shut up. Like, just shut up, you idiot. So, but if I had walked into a Fed office, I guarantee you, if I could have just walked in like you normally could, but now we've got all the mandate, blah, blah, whatever. I was just like, I couldn't show anybody my work. I was like, just look, please, God, just look.
It's like, I have these pieces of paper, please, please observe.
No, I had to pay unbelievable legal fees.
You gotta nail it to the IRS door like Martin Luther.
By the way, my job is to talk about old guns, but I spend more and more of my time just chasing flies.
You feel like you should be able to just show them a copy of your bank records and be like you can tell that I didn't make the money you think I did. Right?
Yeah, I know. Oh, no.
It should be that simple. Like,
utterly.
There is no...
Especially because that year there was no gross. Like, the gross just wasn't there. Like, the gross never showed up. So, like, I get it if you're saying, "Hey, you claim these deductions and they're not real and blah, blah." Okay, fine. That's all right. No, it's literally, this money doesn't exist. You're yelling at me for an imaginary amount of money, which is 2x all the money I had.
Yeah.
Like, you doubled my money, like, not me. And the worst is trying to talk to the two accounts because I'm like, can either of you guys just remove this from the damn 1099 so I can submit? Because that was the other thing. They're like, well, just get us a corrected 1099. Neither of the digital whatever, between Patreon and PayPal, they're both like, but you did receive that money through us. So I'm going, yes, but it wasn't both times for me. But from their perspective, they're like, yeah, but it was like we got this payment from this other guy, They've since cleaned it up. Like, but
You
I
know,
also
it is funny
I don't
is
go from digital to digital anymore either. But
yeah. It's like you're the guy arguing to the minimum wage worker on the other end, like, you know, who just doesn't care. It's just his job to make sure you get a 1099, or he's just, you know, answering emails or whatnot.
man, some guy in India. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah, that too, who does not care, right? He gets paid regardless.
Yeah.
But moving on to
Sorry.
a very important discussion. Tusk asks for 199. When do y'all think AIDS will make a comeback? My favorite AIDS conspiracy is that Fauci created it. It's my favorite one. Mm-hmm.
That's a conspiracy?
Yeah, because he did. Well, yeah, no.
I thought the conspiracy is that he made a new one. Is it they're saying he made the original too?
No, yeah, because Fauci was involved with a lot of the original testing and development of different treatments and whatnot.
I like the
so
theory
that's my favorite one.
I like the theory that Lyme disease was made by the government.
So Fauci was working with a guy, basically working hand in hand with a Professor Luc Montagnier, who was a French virologist. He ended up winning a Nobel Prize in virology for his work identifying the HIV virus itself. That man was supposed to testify in front of a World Court of Public Opinions in 2022, set to testify with many people, including Naomi Wolf and several other virologists and physicians. And he died about 2 days before he was set to testify.
Well, that's convenient.
Yeah.
Anyways, great guy. Moving on. Tusk the Third for $4.99 says, I have an uncle in Nigeria who has a great investment idea, taking pre-orders now. Yes.
That's pretty much. I'm sure there's guys that have done this well, but at that point you might as well sell it as a stock. Like, that's how they used to do it. They used to just form a company, issue stocks, people would get a return on the product. You know, that's how you would do it.
Now they release either an NFT or a meme coin. That's how you buy in.
Yeah, that's not a bad one. Like, you
project.
should release an NFT that if you return the NFT, you get the gun you pre-ordered, right?
Ooh, yeah. Like the token is good for one gun something like that. Yeah.
That way they can
the value of guns goes up, the value of your token goes up. Yeah.
Well, maybe because, like, if you think about it, it's like, okay, you got the token, you have to return the token to us to get your gun. If they go under, or if it looks like it's taking too long, and you pre-ordered for like $5,000, then maybe you can find some sucker that'll buy in at $3,000 on your token. You know what I mean? It's just like, well, I'm not waiting around on them. I'm not going to refund. I'm going to just sell my token to this other guy for $3,000. Like, you'd see some weird market effects. That'd be fun.
Oh yeah. A gun-backed currency. I think that's the most American idea ever.
I really want to work with an economist. I keep forgetting somebody knew one, but I don't know. I want to sit down with someone who's an actual economist, and I want to break down every possible interaction that you have at a gun show, because I think gun shows are some of the most complex economic systems, and I would really love to do that analysis. I have a going thing in the world of the military collector show, which is that selling the gun and gaining currency is a lie. That's not what they're there for. These old guys that are in there, they're there because they bought the gun at X number, and their game is to make the difference the biggest difference possible. And just like, you know, guys will get really serious about something, they'll mod the crap out of it with insane amounts of money and waste all this. Like car guys, you know, buy car $2,000, spend $8,000, sell car for $4,000, right? Every time. I think it's the same thing with these old guys and their guns. I bought this gun for $100 and I'm going to sell it for $1,000, and I don't care if it takes me 40,000 in 30 years to do it. Like, all they care about, like their collection, their hobby is making the big number bigger than the small number by as much as possible. And that's why you go into like Tulsa. Like, I went to Tulsa this year, and I didn't buy a single thing. I couldn't find a thing worth buying because everything was at least 50% over auction market.
You know,
everything.
I've thought about that though. I thought about just going to one of these shows and just selling stuff at like normal prices.
Oh, you'd great. You'd be killing it. I got a buddy that kills it up at the South Carolina shows because he sells milsurp for reasonable prices. So, but he doesn't hedge around and play these games. But these guys though, they will go to their grave because the gun doesn't matter, and the money doesn't actually matter. It is the pride of having been an investor. Like, they see themselves as a gun investor, and they want the big number. And by the way, they got money. They're fine. They're from the wealthiest generation. Their house is paid. They're in retirement. They're not worried about it.
Yeah, I know what I got, Sonny. Yeah, it's about fun more than anything else.
Yeah. Bruno heard one at Tulsa that I can't stop laughing at. He's like, he came up to me just laughing, and I went, "What happened?" And he goes, "I literally heard two of the older guys talking, and one of them's like, 'Hey man, it's day 2, and I haven't sold anything yet. Do you think my prices are too high?' And the other one went, 'No, no, no. They know what you got.'" Literally comforting the other one with the meme, like, they know what you got.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
They're probably too old to know what a meme is.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Well, dude, so my dad's old, right? My dad's like 50 years older than I am, and he called it like a couple years ago. He was talking to me about. He's like, "Have you ever seen these new memes? Memes?
Memes?
Yeah,
Mem-
memes.
Memes?
They're like pictures with like a relatable text on them. It's like, yep, yeah, Dad.
Oh, excuse me, I'm old enough to remember when the internet was not mostly VoIP, so
Mm-hmm.
we had to argue about GIF versus GIF for like 2 years after everybody started talking to each other.
It's funny. My parents got their first email address in 1987.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, early adopters back in the day.
That's wild.
Coyote, I can't talk now. Coyote Brownish for $2 says, "When are we getting a primer on the Tech 9?"
That's not impossible, believe it or not. It's not
Well,
impossible.
you know what's funny is if you go back, you do the Civil War stuff, right, and then you work back up to World War One, and then you go through World War Two, and then into when the 50s and 60s.
Well, so
right?
we're not.
I mean, that could be in the next decade.
With the studio redesign, we're going to make sure we don't stay chronological, so I'm going to jump around a lot more.
Okay.
I do. I hate to say it. I wish I could double my money, not because I want to keep it for myself. Actually, I have this sincere belief that I'm sitting just behind what would be like the angel investor period, where if you could get a cash flow, you could then increase your effect.
Mhm.
And so, what I would like to do is, if you could double my budget tomorrow, if everybody wanted to go sign up for C&Rsenal, the first thing I would do with a doubled budget is hire another researcher and hopefully someone that can be on camera. And then I would just be like, all right, your team B will share as many resources as we can in terms of having a spare designer, or maybe we'll hire a
Mhm.
videographer to just film everything or something like that. But I would like it if I could just get another Othias essentially and run a separate show alternating so that you just had a documentary every week. You know,
Sure.
like and it's possible if I had the funding and I could go find the right guys. And I know some guys I could plug for that, but I have no way to afford them right now, you know?
Well, yeah,
But-
that's the thing. We always wish we could double ourselves, right? And you could
Yeah, so,
actually work together on projects.
I hate to say it, but it's like if C&Rsenal had the Forgotten Weapons budget, I would probably be about 20% richer myself, but I
Mhm.
would take so much more than like, order of magnitude more than that, and dump it on just doubling up what we're doing and sending more of the stories, because I feel like I'm getting older. I can only do a story every 2 weeks, and I have stories that could last me for 3 lifetimes. So why not just, if I could expand the show, and also that would mean as a point of pride, it would mean that if I fell over dead, the show could keep going, and that
Sure.
people could just enjoy the content, and that there would be a vehicle for this
Well,
kind of
and
in-depth research and presentation.
YouTube is kind of an interesting game in that respect, where if you can put out the same quality of content faster, it increases your growth, right?
Yeah, it
So if
does.
you think of it like a snowball, basically, if you could start that snowball off faster in the beginning,
Yep.
you're going to have that effect faster,
well,
right?
To be fair, it's all views. So I had this talk with Ian because we were talking about he's trying to do his little standalone with the history stuff, and we didn't end up joining it because there was no real way to make C&Rsenal work on that program fairly. Because if you think about trying to share revenue, we have fewer videos of longer length. So to watch one C&Rsenal video is to spend an hour and a half investment. That means not watching 3 other videos. So
Mhm.
it's weird, but like I have fewer videos than something like Forgotten Weapons, and I have longer videos. So if someone spends 12 hours watching Forgotten Weapons, they're going to watch, like, I don't know, somewhere between 24 and 36 episodes or something like that. If you spend 12 hours watching us, you're going to see 9 episodes. Like, and if you're getting a ping per episode, and by the way, this is not necessarily how his thing works. We were just talking speculatively at the beginning about how it could work, right? It doesn't play out. So it's very difficult to price assess us in the market because we don't really fit into a YouTube format. We don't, in any sort of video sharing, we don't compare well to anybody unless we sit in with a bunch of other hour-long documentaries.
Right. Yeah, that's almost what it is.
Yeah.
You're a documentary channel. Then it's funny that we talked about earlier how you won the best gun reviewer of 2024 when it feels like the wrong category almost.
Yeah. I mean, May kind of reviews them, I sense, but sorry, I was reading the chat for a second. But yeah, May kind of review. We have a segment that's sort of the subjective thing at the end with May just running like it feels like this, it feels like that, and we kind of shake out some high notes. I like breaking that out because a lot of people don't want to hear her talk at all. Like it's so funny. A lot of guys are like, "I'm not listening to a woman." And you're like, "Okay, I don't." You're not even offending us. Like,
to be fair, there are times where it's like there's a channel that I'm watching for the guy, right? And then it's like, hey, and here's this other person I'm bringing on, and I'm like, well, that's not what I'm here for.
Well, you have no relationship with that person, and then also May will be the first one to tell you she's not an arms expert. She was our demonstrator because she was available for me to have on camera while I ran the cameras because no one else knew what they were doing. And then also May was the height of a World War I soldier, which worked out better than me at 6'1", fat as all get out. It's like the Civil War reenactors that are in like a 3XL whatever, and you're going, guys, this looks weird. Like it's me with a World War I rifle is just some fat idiot at 6'1". It makes the gun look really manageable. And so I'm like, no, let's put it in her hands. Because
this is more accurate to the real size,
right. And then as she got more experience, she could speak more in terms of comparison and give a subjective experience. So we just put it at the end where it's just like, hey, just here's her opinion handling the gun and what bothered her and what didn't bother her because she's the one that was on camera handling the gun. So
yeah,
I don't know. We don't try to push her on people either though, because that's also weird.
Well, the opposite of that is having somebody who's integrated naturally, or it's like, all right, here's two girls in bikinis on the thumbnail and they're in the background of my video.
My favorite is on at least, I think it's been 3 occasions now, like the same scene keeps playing out. Young guy comes up and sees May in public. May is always the first one to get recognized at gun shows, by the way, because when people are running around gun shows and there's the collectors are scanning the tables and they just see another like fat white dude with a
everybody looks the same,
so they just see like my stomach or whatever. No one's looking at eyes, they're looking at guns, so they don't recognize anything because it's just some other guy, unless I open my mouth. If I speak at a gun show, I get that happens. But May is a girl, so when they're scanning around, at some point like a girl butt or like a girl crotch appears in front of their eyes. And they go, oh, and being men, they just do a quick scan to be like, is this an attractive girl or unattractive girl? And when they do the scan, they see her face and they go, I know you. So like we go to Tulsa and I would go like 3/4 of the way across Tulsa and meet like 6 people that recognize me. She makes it 1/4 of the way because she's been stopped 17 times. Because it's not because she's more recognizable than I am, but because she is an object they will look at versus just some other guy in the crowd.
Right. It's like natural camouflage, right? You have a beard, you're wearing a flannel, you're heavy set. You look like everybody else.
So
natural gun show camouflage.
But on 3 occasions at least, some young guy will come up and be like, "Oh my God, you're May!" Blah 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 blah. And of course, their dad saunters over and he's just like, "This is May from the show I showed you." Blah blah blah. And this has happened more than 3 times, but the part that has happened 3 exact times is the guy will go, "Oh, you should do it in a bikini. That would be better. You can see your tits." And every time the son is just like, "Dad," like, it's like,
why would you say that?
It's like your dad, like, because he's thinking it's some chick on YouTube, and meanwhile he thinks it's like his college professor. You know what I mean? Like he's like, "This is from school, Dad." Like,
yeah. It's the Coomer Boomer, as they like to say.
Yeah.
That is very funny. But I mean, it's not a typical Gun Bunny channel, Andrew Vachon for 49 says the Tippmann full auto is awesome. One of the 2 full autos I have played with, and by far the most fun. The XM250 was cool though. Yeah, I mean, I'd run an XM250. I think that would be fun, but yeah, full auto stuff is good. I have simulated full auto with FRTs that may or may not be getting me in trouble soon. We'll see how that goes with the ATF in the coming days. Tusk the Third for 4.99 says, my dad is old, but he's dating Sandra Bullock online. They're exclusive, but she needs a lot of Google Play cards. Could you send me a copy of the voice messages? I wanted to see if she has a bit of an accent.
The pig butchering online is wild, y'all.
Well, yeah, dude, that's a whole market right there. It's the social security to India pipeline. You know what I'm saying?
I'm sure it counts as a sin, but I hope there's some divine punishment there because, like, I can't. I don't know. I mean, there's some really bad capital crimes, but there is something distinctly inappropriate about feeding off of people's loneliness. I also don't like it when people make fun of someone going out there and trying to like flirt or hit, like not aggressively or grossly, but somebody just going out trying to make another connection with a human being. I get really irritated with people being so down on that or being arrogant about interacting with other human beings because loneliness is extremely painful. Like, we are not meant to be alone. I mean, there's a handful of people that like it, but if you're not one of them, it sucks. So I hate those stories so much. Like, feeding on human loneliness is disgusting.
Well,
go back to scams. The old scams back in the day, they used to feed on greed. You know what I mean? Like, you'd find somebody that was greedy and you take advantage. You know, if you get scammed being greedy, go nuts. Like, go rip those guys off. But the feeding on the loneliness, man. Ugh.
So I seen a story today that came out of China where they were hiring female cheerleaders to work in offices of tech space and games and things like that. And their sole job was to like play ping pong with the guys and have lunch with them and basically talk with them. They were the work wives.
Yeah. To be fair, I actually think they came. You remember when they came through like Twitter and a bunch of other places and just dumped out a ton of women that were like, you would see them on Instagram or whatever. This is a day in my life over at whatever tech company, and I drink my mocha whatever, and I go sit on the bouncy ball, and I answer like 6 emails, and I go home and I make $40,000 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, I can't believe it. This is just, and the whole time I'm looking at them, I'm like, I know exactly why they're doing this, because they're all fighting over a small number of like guys that live in their basement that type out this code, and these guys are looking for a social life. And so you guys are all like, I can't believe they're paying this woman this money. It's like, no, they're stocking the building with young, attractive women who they can't hire as prostitutes. That's illegal. You know what I mean? And they can't even apply it. They can't apply it for a second. HR will eat them alive, right?
Well,
so instead, they have a bunch of make-do work where you can hire attractive single women, and then that way you can recruit more guys, because when they give the building tour, they're just like, oh man, maybe I could. You know?
There are actual studies about workplace morale and having people like that around. And I've been in places where there is the specifically a hot young secretary that deals with everybody, right?
But the problem is
just
they get into this corner because they have them around, then they have to feed them in the management track or they get in trouble. And when they feed them in the management track, all hell. I was working for a tech company where, oh my God, I worked at this one tech company and we were suffering. We had this product that was hosted either by us or by them, but it took credit cards over the web. So that'll tell you how big of a deal it was. And our team was getting iced because they were consulting was just stealing people from us like crazy. And we're down to like 3 people on what should have been a 12-person team. These are executive clients, blah, blah, blah. So we had this manager that was hired in from, she's doing the management track. She's not one of these lowly guys that actually knows how any of this works. She's just there to manage. And we're like, we're drowning here. We're about to quit. What are we doing? And she goes, don't worry. We've got like 4 new people interviewing, and one of them is a web dev. And I went, oh my God, how'd you get a web dev before whatever team stole them? And she's like, what are you talking about? I was like, they'll pirate every web dev they bring into this building. Don't let anybody know, blah, blah, blah. And so my more cautious friend goes, web dev or web designer? And she goes, what's the difference? And we went, oof. Oh my God. You guess which one it was? Because we could have used the dev. Like, but.
No, the other one can make things look pretty.
Yeah, literally doesn't know the difference between a web dev and a web designer, and in charge of all of this. And we're like, I'm leaving this company right now.
It's like, okay, we're done. Yeah. We're done here. Yeah, you guys don't care about us. Well, yeah, talking about the loneliness thing, though, if you want to get really dystopian about everything, is the subscription to an AI girlfriend.
No, we're not.
Right. where, dude, no, there's a horror story about this where like guy's credit card declines and then he doesn't feel like he has a reason to live on because he literally loses access to this.
How much are they
relationship.
charging for the AI girlfriend?
Well, it's not much, but it's like an 18-year-old kid who got access to his, or like a 16-year-old kid in high school who got access to his mom's credit card because he's like, he's a loner in high school, and then the card runs out or declines or whatnot.
I
Or
worry
he got a prepaid from grandma for Christmas.
Yeah,
when he was
and it's like, well, now he's lost this relationship that he's built up with this thing that doesn't actually, like, literally this algorithm that doesn't actually exist in the real world, right? Doesn't feel like he has a purpose, and then ends it all.
I don't. To be fair, we're gonna get too far down the road because I have deep opinions about what's happened to young men, which has led.
Sure.
In some ways, they're getting effed, but in some ways, they're effing themselves, but they don't know it because the hood is over their eyes. I think society used to move young men into a more competitive position, and now I'm dealing with younger guys that are friends of mine. I have to explain to them, I'm like, no, you have to go out and get it. Like, you have to go. You have to be adaptable. You have to tell a story and lure someone into that story. And they're like, why do I have to believe? And it's like, because that's how it's always worked, but you've been told it doesn't work that way. And
there's a very clear I mean, this is going to be a 2-hour podcast.
Yeah, we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
Yeah, but there's a very clear degradation in
the roles are still there. The roles
both in
terms
of parenting and in young men. It's all you can still do well, so don't black pill on everything, but the
expectations have not changed, but the education has, which is messing everything up for everyone. But anyway, I'm sorry.
No, it's good. All right, last one for tonight. Logan sucks at shooting for $30. Thank you very much. Logan is ridiculous. He is a member of both of the channels, and he's also on everything. So thank you very much, sir. For $30, says, I almost forgot to send in a super chat. Well, if you're not first, you're last, or something like that. But thank you very much for this. That's the last one.
Everyone send super chats now. Make him read.
No. It is time to I'm supposed to be hanging out with my kids right now. Put them to bed. I was supposed to be there 45 minutes ago, but oh well. What? They're probably actually asleep now.
We've only been on here for 2 hours. We're barely gotten started.
I know, right?
Sometimes it's like, okay, are we going for 3 hours? Are we going for 2 hours? Sometimes I'm like, 60 minutes. Like, sometimes I'm happy with an hour.
Some of us are dedicated to our jobs right now. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Steve Whoop says the cougar can.
Oh, it wasn't the last one. It wasn't the last one.
Well, no. That was just a comment. I just pulled up a comment. That's all. Yeah. Scorpio's got the popcorn out. So.
Yeah. I do have one more question before we go. Matthias, I know you said no kids, but do you have any dad advice for us? I know you touched on young men being led astray and also some issues there. Without getting too far off into the weeds, what would be your closing dad advice for the guys in the chat?
It's never not a struggle. Like, everybody seems to think, how do I put this? I keep calling it the tutorial generation, right? Everybody's like, okay, give me the list of things I need to do. Okay, I did all the things. Give me the reward, right? It doesn't work that way. All of life is a negotiation. Like, all of human life, at least, is a negotiation. And you can have bad luck or a misstep or say the wrong thing and it will all fall apart. Or you can have good luck and say the right thing and it'll all line up. And this happens over and over and over again in many different ways. So what you should do is you should go out and practice. Anything you want to do, you want to practice. We were talking about loneliness earlier. You would go out and practice talking to people. And then you would practice dating. The first date you go on is probably not the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. I know it's hard to feel that way when your heart's going and you're lonely. But you got to put one foot in the front of the other. I've been going out to the bars with some friends, and the guy's not a big talker. And I'm like, just talk to her. And he's like, she seems like kind of a hag. And I'm just like, yeah. But you're not taking her home. Go talk, like, break the ice. And when you do it poorly and she looks at you like you have three heads, don't do it that way again. But this is the thing I've noticed a lot of guys miss is they overthink trying to get it right the first time, so they don't try anything. Now, I'm not saying pull out your penis or something. That's weird. Like, you go at a normal human pace, but you're gonna have to put your feet in the water and then paddle around in the shallow end and things like that. Like, you got to start thinking about, how do I position myself over many years to get what I want? Because right now, I think the way the internet and everything else has been structured, especially video games for young men, they feel like it's like, I did the thing, give me the reward. I did the thing, give me the reward. It just, real life has never worked that way. And you just got to get it out of your head. It's a fiction that your brain has accidentally taken in. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, what are you going to say for the women? I don't deal with a lot of young women. So my fans are all young men. So unfortunately, I would need a more matriarchal person to answer that question. But I can tell you what you guys can do to better yourselves. And to be honest with you, you can often find what you're looking for by just working at it over and over and over again. Like, be
that's the thing
adaptable and work at it.
Is it doesn't even matter really. People get hooked up on like, oh, women don't do this, women do this. It's like if you're not improving yourself, if you're not making yourself a better person, like that aspect of it is kind of irrelevant, right?
You're also getting caught with generalizing. You're really like, people want to pigeonhole what they're doing. Again, tutorial generation, right? It's like, is this the good choice so that I get to the proper ending of Mass Effect 3, or is this the bad choice so I get the bad ending of Mass? It doesn't actually work that way. It's all a constant negotiation. And it's whatever you can bring to the table to kind of wrap somebody else up in what you're doing. Convincing someone to go into business with you, convincing them to be your friend, convincing them to be your date, convincing them to not get into a fist fight with you at the Arby's because somebody stepped on somebody's shoe. Like, all of life is a negotiation. You just got to get good at working it out with other people.
Eric McKinley has a very valid.
He's not wrong. Like,
it's also that's applicable to life too. No matter what choices you make, you kind of still get the bad ending.
Yeah.
But all right, gentlemen, I think that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. Matthias, I want to thank you again for coming on here, giving us your time, putting up with the delays over the last 6 months. But it was great to chat, and I'm sure we will chat more in the future. And I do genuinely appreciate you coming on here and sharing some knowledge with us, sir.
Yeah, holler if you need me, I guess. I still haven't said anything yet.
Oh yeah, right. We've barely gotten started. I mean, this is really the length of one of your videos, so I can
quack for hours.
It's just another Tuesday.
Yeah.
But so I have your Patreon linked in the chat. Is there anything else that you want to shout us out before we get out of here?
No, if you guys want to take if anybody's watching this that doesn't watch gun history, go sort our videos by popular and pick one of the longer ones to try on. That's really the best advice I can give you for if you want to hear a good story about where a gun came from. And also a lot of people just put it on to go to sleep, so that's fine too.
If you want general
really
entertainment,
enjoyed the recent John Browning 2-part series, so that's a good one. I would personally recommend.
Right,
that was a really good one. So
I'm sorry, what did Richard say? I didn't hear.
The series that I enjoyed the most was the It's a Trap series. I thought that was great.
YouTube will never share that series. God, I could go on a whole thing about weird stuff YouTube's done to us that we can show you, because we have had really weird performance issues on YouTube.
That series was one of the most fun that I think I've ever seen that was done by gun content creators that wasn't specifically gun focused.
That's probably the most wholesome thing I think I've ever done, is that stupid series. I really need to get out the footage from there was a season 2 that we filmed, but Kevin showed up with COVID and gave us all COVID. And we didn't know it was COVID at the time because he swore it wasn't. And then it's boiling hot, and we're on this range that has just been dug out. So we're in this devastated trench environment with a blinding sun. All the light balance is off because we're all burning alive. Kevin is sick, so he's barely responding. I think we spent 10 minutes talking about a dog that drowned. It's the anti-trap series. So one day I'd like to film season 2 and then just cut in scenes of horror from the first attempt at season 2, because I can't release it as it is because it will just be sad. But
there's nothing there.
Yeah, but if I could actually get season 2 filmed, Kevin, we could actually intersperse that stuff, because it's utter insanity.
Roll in some of the end bloopers like you did before. That was really great. But yeah, Kevin, do your thing. Don't make him sick. Go film.
Yeah, he won't do it.
I'll bully him.
Yeah, it'll be 20 years before he comes to that.
But with all that out of the way, gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. There's going to be a jump scare in about 10 seconds. But before we get out of here, I just want to say thank you once again for watching. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye. I love you.
Good night,
guys. All right.
You're a retarded faggot.
I